All right, I think we have a quorum here, so are we ready to go, Nathan? All right. Welcome to Appropriations Committee. Looks like we have a dozen or so bills here today. We're gonna skip over 899 to allow County Executive Olszewski to join us after his bill hearing. So we'll start with 836. Delegate Edelston is Delegate Edelston's not here. All right, so we're gonna go to oh, you know what? Delia Jones, County Executive's here. House Bill 899. Nice to see you. You too, Mr. Chairman.
County Executive, thank you so much. It's good to see you. Absolutely. Chairman, can I bring my panel up, please? Yes, please.
Yeah.
All right. Chair Barnes, Vice Chair Chang, and my friends on the Appropriations Committee, I am Delegate Dana Jones. I come before you today to introduce a House Bill 899, Higher Education Firefighters and EMS, Recruitment and Retention, Scholarship and Loan Payment Assistance, which seeks to address the pressing needs of our firefighting and emergency medical services EMS in Maryland. This bill is truly dedicated to the efforts of the Commission to advance and strengthen firefighting and EMS within Maryland, a collaborative initiative that engaged key stakeholders, including MACO, MML, MSFA, IAFF, PFFM, MFRI, MIEMSS. And I think that's as well as the Metropolitan Fire Chiefs Association and the Maryland Fire Chiefs Association. Thank you for letting me get through that alphabet soup. Incredibly important commission and folks. The commission's exhaustive report not only sheds light on the current state of Maryland's firefighter and EMS personnel recruitment and retention, but also presents crucial recommendations to fortify our state's emergency response capacity. You have my written testimony. I just want to go over a few things, please, before turning it over to the panel. It is essential to emphasize that despite Maryland's average 911 response times exceeding the national average, there is a growing concern in numerous communities where timely responses are not the norm. We've seen multiple press reports of this throughout the state. The persistence of current recruitment and retention trends could soon lead to Marylanders to experience the distressing reality of calling 911 without receiving a prompt response that they rightfully expect. HB 899 will help to reverse these trends. So what does 899 do? Strengthens the Charles W. Riley Firefighter and Ambulance and Rescue Squad Member Scholarship Program. It expands the program to cover 100% of the cost of tuition and mandatory fees at in-state community colleges and for undergraduate education, and 50% of tuition and mandatory fees for graduate education. It expands the universe of programs which qualify for funding, reflecting the needs of our modern emergency response networks. It clarifies that funding for the program is to be utilized after all other grants, scholarships, and financial aid, excluding student loans, are awarded, and clarifies that funding is available on a first-come, first-served basis. 2, it creates the Maryland Loan Assistance Repayment Program for firefighters and EMS. It establishes which establishes a new program for awarding student loan assistance and firefighters and EMS personal based on years of service, rank, and other criteria established by MHEC. This new program is modeled after the Maryland Loan Assistance Repayment Program for police officers that many of you already know. 3, and finally, it explores additional recommendations from the commission related to childcare and healthcare. However, I have reviewed the information with amendment testimony from DBM, and I'm happy to accept their amendment to remove the study language should the committee concur with that. So in conclusion, House Bill 899 takes vital steps towards fortifying Maryland's emergency response capabilities, for the safety and well-being of our communities. I humbly request a favorable report for House Bill 899, and I'd like to turn things over to my panel chairman.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Vice Chairman, members of the Appropriations Committee. For the record, Johnny Olszewski, Baltimore County Executive and President of MACO. I want to thank all of you for the opportunity to join you yet again. Thank you, Delegate Jones, for your leadership on this important issue, one of MACO's priorities. And an issue area where, we've seen up close and personal the importance of having firefighters and first responders be supported. Just last April, we saw an 8-alarm fire brush tear through Owings Mills, and through the incredible work of our first responders and firefighters, we had no lives lost, 30 homes evacuated, properties saved, and we want to make sure that we continue to support their efforts. Sponsor talked about all of the stakeholders at the table. We're proud to be one of those stakeholders at MACO. As I talk to my colleagues in local government across the state, the challenges are shared. So we do very much support strengthening scholarships, creating a new loan repayment program, and providing the additional childcare and healthcare support. These are individuals who do incredible work. We want to make sure we have the workforce to respond to the needs. So we're proud to be here in support. We have MACO staff to answer any specific technical questions as well, but are committed to working with this committee to ensure passage of this bill, House Bill 899. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Good afternoon, Chair Barnes, Vice Chair Chang, and members of the committee. For the record, I'm Robert Phillips. I am the Legislative Chair for the Maryland State Firefighters Association. We represent 12,000 plus volunteers across the state, and these are the people we're talking about here today, the volunteers, fire and EMS people. We've seen a decline in the numbers of our personnel over the past many years. MACO recognized this. They partnered with ourselves, the MSFA, along with many other groups. We fully support this bill. We see it to be a very valuable tool for the future. We need to bring in more members, and we need to retain who we have. And this bill goes a long ways to accomplish that. I had down here that I was favorable with amendments. I'd like to say that whatever the language was in the amendments has been taken care of, and the MSFA fully supports this bill as it's presently written. Thank you. And if you have any questions, I'll be glad to try to answer them.
Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. For the record, Drew Jabin here on behalf of the Maryland Association of Community Colleges in full support of House Bill 899. I will be quick. I know you all have a lot of work today. We appreciate this bill. We appreciate community colleges' inclusion in this bill. We are anchor institutions of the state, and we think that this goes in the right direction. So thank you, and we urge a favorable report.
Finally, Mr. Chair, members of the committee, Don Butchko with the Maryland Association of Counties here in enthusiastic support of this legislation. This is one of our top 4 initiatives this year, and we cannot underline how important this is. A couple of things that I want to provide some clarity on. There was initially a move with some of our stakeholders to try and find certain routes for funding our program, and MACO is withdrawing our amendment requests for that. But I want to be really specific. We want to leave it up to the committee to decide how to fund this, but irregardless of that, the bill in front of you today, I cannot strongly urge you enough to pass the program and at least establish the architecture so that we can give these benefits to our firefighters. This bill is about supporting the people that when you are most in need, show up to help you. And this bill is about making sure that our mutual constituents have the emergency services they need so that they can enjoy a quality of life in Maryland. So irregardless of the funding, please pass HB 899 as it is. Thank you.
Okay, thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We do have a second panel on the bill. Grant Walker, Tiffany Green, Paul Ellington, and Captain Keegan Kazaki. Y'all can come up, and whoever gets to the table first can start your testimony. A reminder for all the witnesses who are testifying today, witnesses have 2 minutes in the Appropriations Committee. Grant, nice to see you. You want to start?
You as well. 1 second.
Oh, I got a phone. Yes, it's his does.
Good morning, Chair Barnes and the esteemed members of this committee. My name is Grant Walker. I serve as the president of the Prince George's County Professional Firefighters and Paramedics Association, IFF Local 1619, representing 1,800 active and retired firefighters and paramedics. Today, I'm here in support of House Bill 899. When I started in the fire service, I was testing for employment with thousands of potential employees. I sat in New York City with nearly 90,000 people seeking employment. When I tested for Prince George's County, I sat with 3,500 individuals. Now we have roughly 1,500 candidates. Maryland has some of the best trained firefighters in the nation. However, recruitment is a challenge. With historic lows in unemployment and the prevalence of work from home job opportunities, fewer individuals are inclined to work for the fire department. Enticing individuals to serve their community as firefighters in Maryland is of paramount importance. This bill takes a small step towards that goal. Coupled with initiatives like House Bill 900, we can make significant strides toward making Maryland the most attractive state in the nation for firefighters. I will leave you with a quote from the late Deputy Chief of the Chicago Fire Department, John Eversole. Our department takes 1,120 calls a day. Do you know how many of those calls the public expects perfection on? 1,120. Nobody calls the fire department and says, send me 2 dumbass firemen in a pickup truck. In 3 minutes, they want 5 brain surgeon decathlon champions to come and solve all of their problems. I apologize for the language. It's a direct quote. With that, I ask for a favorable report on House Bill 899. Thank you.
Afternoon. My name is Captain Keegan Tazaki with Howard County Department of Fire and Rescue Services. I'd like to thank Chairman Barnes, Vice Chair Chang, and the members of the committee for your time today. House Bill 899 seeks to expand the Charles W. Riley Firefighter and Ambulance Rescue Squad member scholarship to encompass additional programs at institutions of higher education in the state of Maryland and to establish the Maryland Loan Repayment Assistance Program for firefighters and emergency medical services providers. This proposed alteration would allow first responders access to educational opportunities that support career advancement and professional development within the field, benefiting the overall quality of emergency response and patient care services in the state of Maryland. The establishment of the Maryland Loan Repayment Assistance Program for firefighters and emergency medical services providers is also likely to have a positive impact on recruitment and retention. Recruitment. A loan repayment assistance program is likely to encourage more individuals to pursue careers in firefighting and emergency medical services. Many prospective first responders may be deterred from entering these fields due to the high cost of education, low entry salaries, and the burden of student loan debt. Volunteer members can be affected by choosing to work versus serving their communities. By offering loan repayment assistance, the program makes service to our communities more financially attractive to a wider pool of candidates. Retention. By addressing the burden of student loan debt, which may be a significant factor in decision of first responders to stay in their current positions or seek employment elsewhere. The availability of a loan repayment assistance program can help to alleviate financial stress and incentivize employees to remain in their roles for a longer period of time. This would contribute to greater stability and continuity for emergency service organizations statewide. In closing, by broadening the scope of the scholarship, you would help to address potential barriers and burdens first responders must overcome when accessing higher education. This inclusive approach would contribute to a more equitable and accessible educational landscape for first responders, ultimately benefiting the individuals, their communities, and the emergency response infrastructure in the state of Maryland as a whole. It is for these reasons that we'd ask for a favorable report from the committee for this proposed legislation. Thank you for your time.
Paul Ellington, representing the Worcester County Commissioners. I'll be very brief. This is one that rural Maryland and more urban Maryland agree with, but it disproportionately impacts rural Maryland because they almost rely solely upon volunteers. And any little bit that this committee or this state could do to help us with recruitment and retention would be greatly appreciated. Thank you.
Panel. Okay, that concludes the bill hearing. See you. Have a great day. Delegate Edelson, 836, please feel free to bring your panel up.
Good afternoon, Chair Barnes, Vice Chair Chang, members of the Appropriations Committee, and our interlopers from ENT, particularly Delegate Stewart. Great to see you. For the record, I am Delegate Mark Edelson here on HB 836, the Transportation and Climate Alignment Act of 2024. Maryland established itself as a national leader on climate policy when this legislature passed the Climate Solutions Now Act. Now our attention must turn to ensuring that we align state policies with the Act's ambitious goals and implement it with fidelity. Transportation remains the #1 source of climate pollution in Maryland. The 2023 Maryland Climate Pollution Reduction Plan indicated that electrification of vehicles is only one part of the solution needed to meet our climate goals. The other is reducing greenhouse gas emissions via vehicle miles traveled, or VMT, by investing in public transit, transit-oriented development, walking and biking, etc. As we all know, we are facing a major budget shortfall for our transportation needs, necessitating us to make the best and highest use of our transportation dollars, particularly the formula and discretionary funding that we receive from the federal government. In order to do that, we need to be able to make informed decisions about how investments and projects align with the state's goals to advance equity, improve mobility, and fight the climate crisis. That is what this bill aims to accomplish. I'll have my panel dive into more of the technical aspects, but in short, this bill would require that MDOT, the Maryland Department of Transportation, perform an assessment of any major highway expansion project of over $10 million and determine whether the project will result in increased greenhouse gas emissions or vehicle miles traveled. If the answer is yes, then MDOT could alter the scope or design of the project, or if it still intends to pursue the project as originally formulated, under the bill, MDOT would be required to work with our local MPOs, our metropolitan planning organizations, to propose a mitigation plan that would net out the greenhouse gas emissions of the project. The idea being that we will, 1, prioritize projects that do not increase planet-harming greenhouse gas emissions, and 2, that we will focus any mitigation plans in the community that is directly impacted by the highway expansion project or the nearest overburdened underserved community. Now, there are a range of mitigation options in the bill, such as transit expansion, like fixed bus route or rail transit service improvements, like increased service levels or priority treatments, or active transportation infrastructure, like bike lanes or walking trails. It can also include transportation demand management systems, like carpooling, teleworking programs, broadband expansion, or land use improvements, like TOD, transit-oriented development, just to name a few. I'd like to end with a couple quick FAQs before I turn it over to my panel. First, yes, this has been done before, in Colorado in 2021 and in Minnesota in 2023. Second, this bill does not apply to any projects currently under construction or in the queue. It will exempt projects that were submitted for approval, inclusion in, or funded for construction in the CTP, our Consolidated Transportation Program, or the STIP, our Statewide Transportation Improvement Program, or any TIP, which is the MPO's Transportation Improvement Program, before July 1 of 2024. Third, this bill covers highway expansion, not system preservation. And fourth, this bill is only intended to cover major projects over $10 million. And finally, just regarding the fiscal note, which I know we all love to read as much as possible in this committee, the only direct impact is the personnel necessary to conduct the assessments. That's what the fiscal note describes. Obviously, when you compare that to the economic and environmental savings associated with implementing this policy, it is an extremely good return on investment. Personally, I think the first year fiscal note is a little high, and we're actively working on ways to lower it, as well as pursuing IRA and IIJA funding to offset it. But after that, it's approximately $100,000 a year, which is exceedingly modest. We have some friendly technical sponsor amendments, which you should have in your folders. And with that, I request a favorable report, and we'll turn it over to my panel.
Good afternoon, members of the committee, Mr. Vice Chair. For the record, I'm Josh Tolkien, Director of the Maryland chapter of the Sierra Club. On behalf of our 70,000 members and supporters in the state of Maryland, we urge a favorable report. Before I jump into what this bill does, I want to talk about some of the context about why it's so important. The General Assembly and the governor have set forth a bold vision for Maryland's future, for our education, for affordable housing, cleaning our environment, strengthening our communities. Transportation is central to achieving so many of these goals. We have a bold climate goal of reducing greenhouse gases 60% by the year 2031. MDOT has also proposed a strong goal for vehicle miles traveled, or VMT, the least exciting term for something that's so important, which is how we measure how we're helping people spend less time in their cars. Reducing vehicle miles traveled equals better public transportation, more accessible services. These are all the positive things that we want to measure. And there's so many public benefits associated with investing in VMT reduction. Later on, you're going to hear what it will look like if we accomplish this 20% reduction, what that brighter future looks like. That's the good news. The bad news is Maryland is not currently on track to achieve these very strong goals that it has set. But seeing this as an opportunity, this bill puts in place important safeguards and structures to create accountability. With a $20 billion 5-year budget and our climate goals just 7 years away, we can't wait 5 to 7 years to double check on whether or not we're on track. We need a way to assess if the transportation plan each year is consistent with these goals and to have some system set up to allow us to adjust. This legislation would enact proper safeguards, and you will hear a variety of compelling testimony as we go for how this will work, why it's effective, and we urge a favorable report. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the opportunity to testify. My name is Stuart Schwartz. I'm the Executive Director of the Coalition for Smarter Growth. We're a 27-year-old organization advocating for walkable, bikeable, inclusive, and transit-oriented communities as the most sustainable way for the Washington, D.C. region to grow and provide opportunities for all. We work in the Northern Virginia suburbs, D.C., and the Maryland suburbs of D.C., and we strongly support HB 836. The TCA will ensure Maryland's transportation investments are aligned with its climate goals, as Josh has noted, but they also provide numerous other benefits to the state's residents, workers, and communities. It would advance equity and accessibility to opportunity and make smart use of our limited public dollars. The Maryland Climate Pollution Reduction Plan estimates the state must invest $1 billion per year to meet its climate targets. And as you know, Maryland is one of the states most threatened by the effects of climate change and sea level rise and flooding, among other things. For this reason, we can't afford to invest money in projects that take us backwards and cancel out the climate progress of the state's other investments. Climate-oriented transportation investments will provide more transportation options for people, increase safety, and save families money. It encourages projects that link jobs, housing, services, and infrastructure in more compact, attractive, and competitive communities for doing business and creating a home. These walkable, accessible places lower the combined cost of housing plus transportation, which is a better indicator of affordability than housing costs alone. The approach has also been economically competitive for Maryland and other regions, and it's been key to attracting and retaining Fortune 500 firms like Marriott and Choice Hotels, which have both gone to metro station locations, not to mention the FBI's location decision to go to Greenbelt. In fact, Prince George's County has focused its economic strategy in transit-oriented development and along the Metro Blue Line. In short, the TCA ensures Maryland can design and select projects that support climate-friendly solutions and competitive economic centers. We recommend a favorable report. Thank you.
Good afternoon, committee members. My name is Miguel Moravic, and I work at the Rocky Mountain Institute. So the issue, as it's been well described, is that MDOT is not on track to meet its statutorily required pollution reduction targets. Why is that? In its own documents, MDOT is projecting that traffic is going to increase over the next several decades. More traffic leads to more pollution. Fortunately, in these same documents, MDOT identifies the solution to this issue. MDOT says if it was given the opportunity by this body to prioritize projects that we know reduce traffic, projects like protected bike lanes, more reliable bus service, or even land use strategies that bring destinations closer together, by definition, reducing traffic, they would hit their statutorily required climate targets. This systems level approach to measuring traffic system-wide and doing responsible assessment on your projects, it's not new. As the delegate mentioned, it's been done by the state of Colorado, and their own state DOT said it's not only going to reduce traffic, but it'll unlock $40 billion of net benefit for our commuters. That's a very big number. And we at RMI used their same methodology to answer the question, what if Marylanders also had reduced traffic, and met MDOT's traffic reduction goals. Our analysis shows that by making the transportation system more efficient and by providing more clean, safe, and affordable transportation options, each Maryland household would save over $3,000 per year from reduced gas, reduced maintenance, and reduced depreciation costs. A more efficient system is more affordable by definition. Of course, the climate reduction potential from this kind of policy would also be very large. We estimate 55 million metric tons of greenhouse gas savings. So it is up to decision makers like yourselves to unlock these benefits and give MDOT the directive to make a more affordable and efficient transportation system. Thank you.
Chair Barnes, members of the committee, good afternoon. My name is Benjamin Lin. I'm here on behalf of ATU Local 689. Thank you for the opportunity to provide testimony today. The union supports HB 836 and urges the House Appropriations Committee to issue a favorable report. This bill would be a transformative measure both for Maryland's transportation system and the environment. ATU Local 689 represents more than 15,000 transit workers and retirees throughout the Washington, D.C. area. And as we know, the climate pollution often affects working class people first, especially brown and Black communities, immigrants, and frontline workers. It hurts our members and riders alike. And unfortunately, transportation is Maryland's primary source of climate pollution. And that pollution must be addressed if the state is serious about meeting its goals of reducing emissions. The TCA is the vehicle to do just that. By aligning expanded transportation with lower emission options like extensive, reliable, and accessible mass transit. In sum, passage of HB 836 is vital. With Maryland facing a transportation budget crisis, it is critical to prioritize spending the state's scarce dollar on projects that aligns with goals for working class people. We appreciate the efforts that have been done so far, but believe the state is not on track to meet the climate pollution reduction goals, but we believe passing TCA will allow Maryland to meet those goals. The union would like to thank the delegate for introducing this worthy measure and urges the committee to issue a favorable report. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much to the bill sponsor panel. Are there any questions from members of the committee? Okay, great. Thank you very much. We have Doug Spiegel.
Had a little delay on the microphone. Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. Delegate Edelson, thank you for bringing this very interesting bill, this interesting approach to an important issue. You alluded earlier to the fact that the bill would impact the way that MDOT and the local metropolitan planning organizations plan and program their projects. And I'm just wondering, without having had the chance to go through the entire bill file yet, have those entities provided any opposition to the bill?
Thank you for the question, Delegate. No, they haven't. We have been working with our MPOs, both the Baltimore Metropolitan Council, which hosts the federally designated BRTB, the Baltimore Regional Transit Board in Baltimore, as well as WashCog. They have not provided any opposition. The issue that they have raised that we've been working through is they're concerned that the onus to actually do the assessment would fall on them. They're concerned that they wouldn't have sufficient personnel to be able to do so, which is easily resolved because the requirement to do the assessment is going to be on MDOT, and that's what the fiscal note reflects. There's also no opposition from MDOT. They provided a letter of information. I have been informed recently that they intend to propose some amendments, which I'm happy to work through with them on. I just haven't received anything yet.
Thank you.
Delegate McComas.
The Rocky Mountain Institute, I have a question for you. Colorado has a different, obviously they're a mile high, pretty much, at least Denver is. And also they have a very significant pollution problem in Denver because of the smog. And I think the topography is such that evidently with the mountains and everything that kind of captures the smog. So I was kind of wondering, you talked about the analysis was done for Colorado. Maryland kind of has a different topography, and we have a lot of humidity. Colorado does have some humidity, but it is fairly a dry climate compared to Maryland. So I was just kind of wondering, is it possible that we have different things that maybe need to be looked at, and this model that was used by Colorado really doesn't fit Maryland because of there's just different climate and altitude and humidity factors, as well as we have a lot of water, whereas Colorado doesn't have the Chesapeake Bay. So if you could kind of enlighten me there.
Delegate, thank you for the question. So our analysis is based on a number of things, and to directly answer your question, I think they're universal. Rather than being based on the topography or the environment, we're looking at avoided tailpipe emissions, which absolutely, no matter where you are, come out of the back of a vehicle. And we're also looking at energy savings, crash fatality savings, right? From if you have less traffic, there's a lower chance of an automobile colliding with another automobile, causing a fatality. So our full analysis is based on factors that do not consider the environment, but consider the pollution coming out of the back of your car, the reality that other modes of transportation are safer and cleaner and are going to drain the energy system less. And I can confidently say that the analysis stands here in Maryland, as it does with 49 other states where we've produced and peer reviewed this analysis. Does that answer your question, Delegate? Thank you so much.
Just to add on that, if I can, Mr. Chair, it's an excellent question, Delegate. I really appreciate it. The larger picture here is also that there is no dispute that we as a state are not on track to achieve our climate solutions goals of reducing greenhouse gas emissions at the levels we have set ourselves to do. So without taking action like this to really put ourselves on target to hit those goals and reduce the way that we currently plan and program our dollars into programs that construction projects that increase greenhouse gas emissions, we're not going to achieve the goals that we're trying to achieve. The ultimate goal being to have a planet that's inhabitable in the long term.
Great, thank you very much. Are there any other questions from members of the committee or the panel? Okay, thank you very much. We also have several other witnesses. Casey Hunter, League of Women's Voters of Maryland. Hi. We have Ross Medidko, Dan Reed, Gussie McGuire with the Chesapeake Bay Foundation, and Miguel Morevko with Rocky Mountain Institute.
Mr. Vice Chair, Miguel was on the previous panel, so he's already testified.
Okay, great. Thank you. Okay, if you could state your name and then provide your testimony in 2 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, committee. My name is Ross Medico, and I'm a resident of the Waverly community in Baltimore, Maryland, and a frequent rider and user of Maryland's public transit. I'm here to testify in favor of the Transportation and Climate Alignment Act of 2024. As a commuter between Baltimore and Washington, D.C., my commute usually is a bus ride, a MARC commuter train ride, a bike share ride, and a metro ride in DC. It actually all works quite conveniently when it all works. Unfortunately, it doesn't usually. Just actually on my trip here this morning, the time I was waiting for the bus coming late in other places I live would have had multiple buses come by. And I guess this all gets to my point where these are all, every step of this trip is all policy failures, whether it's the bus not coming and having to take the bike share instead, but there's no bike share available. And then you get onto the bike lane that's not protected or no bike lane at all. It's all policy failure every single step of the way. And that's why we need a bill like this that's going to support more investments in public transportation in Maryland and reduce car trips and induce that demand as well. I'll just sum up right here. There's a Transportation for America study that was done that shows that states, including Maryland, are spending more of their federal funding on highways and not on public transit and walking and biking for that matter. In fact, Maryland spends more on on highway funding than all three of those public transit, biking, and walking combined. This is going to show an increase in climate pollution by 2040, the complete opposite of the climate goals set by this very institution that we are here right now. So I'll just sum up. I urge you all to support in favor of the bill. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Dan Reed. I'm the Regional Policy Director at Greater Washington. We're a nonprofit that works to advance sustainable and equitable housing and land use in the DC area and in Maryland. We support House Bill 836, which would hold the state accountable for the negative impacts of large highway projects. As has been said before today, the state is facing a budget crisis, a housing crisis, and a climate crisis. Land use, where things are and how we get between them, is key to addressing all three. This bill would require that transportation officials measure the pollution and traffic effects of large highway projects and to mitigate any impacts that don't comply with the state's climate or traffic goals. Those mitigation strategies include investing in transportation options like public transit or bike lanes, but it also encourages looking at land use, as in the development of jobs and housing closer to each other so people don't have to drive as much or even at all. Giving people more choices on where to live and how to get around isn't just good for those people. Especially in the DC area, it is very desirable to live near public transit. And so those are the most expensive and often exclusionary neighborhoods in the region and in the state. But it also makes better use of Maryland's limited transportation funds. It provides much needed housing supply in the places where, as I mentioned, people want to live, and it reduces our state's carbon emissions. Research shows that more highways can in fact make traffic worse, and we have to give people more and better options for getting around. This bill has been modeled on legislation in states such as Colorado and Minnesota and will help by holding the state accountable for the transportation investments we make. We urge the committee to give this bill a favorable report. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm Casey Hunter, the Program and Policy Coordinator for the League of Women Voters of Maryland, here in support of House Bill 836. As you've heard from the members of this panel, reducing climate pollution is not only about protecting our environment, it's also about protecting and improving the quality of life for our communities. Our health outcomes and socioeconomic opportunities are strongly influenced by factors in our communities that often go beyond our control. Access to safe, reliable, and affordable transportation is one of these key factors. Maryland has a scarce transportation budget, and we simply cannot afford to spend money on projects that actively work against the state's climate-focused investments. We must prioritize projects that work towards our climate goals. When we invest in expanding transportation choices, we're connecting our communities, and this opens up new housing options and job opportunities and connects Marylanders with access to important services like healthcare and education. And we're not just talking about investing in metropolitan areas here. The mitigation options in this bill can benefit more rural communities as well by expanding broadband access and investing in bike and pedestrian infrastructure. The TCA particularly benefits overburdened and underserved communities who historically lack access to these opportunities and are disproportionately burdened by transportation costs. As Miguel from RMI mentioned, reducing vehicle travel by 20% per capita would save the average Maryland household more than $3,000 annually. This puts money back in people's pockets that can go towards meeting basic human needs and even stimulating local economic growth. So all of these benefits and all of the benefits that my fellow panelists have testified to are only achieved if MDOT reaches its goal of reducing vehicle travel by 20% per capita. We will not achieve any of these benefits with the current business as usual approach. The TCA not only provides a roadmap for achieving the state's climate goals, but brings state law in line with its established values. The League of Women Voters urges a favorable report.
Good afternoon. My name is Gussie McGuire, staff scientist with the Chesapeake Bay Foundation, speaking in support of House Bill 836. As my fellow testifiers have already given a lot of information about how this bill will positively impact climate, environmental, justice problems in this state. It will also directly positively impact the Chesapeake Bay by cutting air emissions that become bay pollutants as soon as it rains. I'm not going to repeat what everyone else said, but for this and all of those other reasons, the Chesapeake Bay Foundation urges your favorable report on House Bill 836.
Great, thank you very much, all the panelists. Are there any questions from the committee? Great, thank you very much. This afternoon, Delegate Rice.
Thank you. And so, yeah, I agree with you guys. We do have a very limited transportation budget. And what we're talking about here is some of this money is going to come out of the general fund. Most of it's going to come out of the transportation trust fund. And we've already siphoned off a lot of money that comes out of the transportation fund, which is generally covered by
the gas, the titling tax, and from that mode of transportation. I guess my question is, I mean, I know that the climate it's important. But how, at what point is there this threshold where it's not okay to take away from road and bridge construction anymore? Because people still, in parts of the state, they don't have mass transit. They still have to be able to get to work. They still have to get to school, to the store. They still have to live their lives using roads and bridges. I mean, so how do we, what's that breaking point, or how do we sort of balance that? Because it seems like we're constantly coming back. We're taking another $150 million this year to go to WMATA. I mean, it's coming out of transportation. Well, not all of it isn't, thank goodness, of the governor's decision, but next year it will. So how do we mitigate that? Because we still have to live our lives in the rural parts of the state, rather.
Yeah, thank you for your question. I want to clarify that this bill is, it's not saying that any kind of highway project can't go forward. So, realizing that you're right, people still do need to drive from point A to point B. But we do have established very clear climate goals for reducing pollution. Pardon, I lost my train of thought for a moment there, but we do have these climate goals. And so if a project is going to go forward and we're going to spend a lot of money on an expensive highway project, we can't have that actively working against our goals. So this bill isn't saying that can't go forward. It's just, if you're going to do a project and it's going to have the impact of increasing greenhouse gases and increasing vehicle travel, you have to mitigate that so that you're not actively working against progress towards climate goals.
If we had to use all of the transportation trust fund in order to be able to mitigate our impact to the environment, would you be okay with that?
I don't have an answer to that question.
Okay.
I would like to clarify, is my understanding of the bill is that it would apply to highway projects over $10 million. So maintenance projects, making sure that bridges stay up and that roads are paved and that smaller road projects that maybe need done are done wouldn't be impacted by this. So if somebody in your district was concerned about an extra turn lane or needed a bridge repaved, like these things, I don't think would be impacted by this bill.
Just add one more aspect to that too, in terms of just more funding in general. Of course, that's something this institution, I believe, passed last year to explore more revenue streams, because apparently it needs to take 2 years to figure out whether car toll revenue is good to be allocated towards public transit, which is interesting. But yeah, there needs to be more investment there, and it's helpful not just for the urban communities, but for the rural communities. From my bus route that goes to hospitals, universities, stations, small businesses, to the commuter on the highway who can take a bus into DC, as there's also commuter buses too that need to get places faster as well. And thank you.
Right, Delegate Acevedo.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. To Delegate Grice's point around the costs, I wanted to come back to that. There are federal funds that are available to cover the costs of these mitigation projects, isn't that so?
There are programs like CMAQ, which are explicitly intended for congestion mitigation to address air quality issues, yeah.
Right, so whatever cost that might be associated with these mitigation projects, as a state, we can tap into federal dollars to cover these projects, isn't that so?
To an extent, like the CMAQ is limited what it can cover. They're often used for, things like transit or park and rides, and sometimes what's called transportation demand management, basically making people aware of the options that are available to them. They feel like there aren't any, they don't know what exists. So there's some flexibility there.
And in addition to the program that you just mentioned, there are other federal programs which, come with billions of dollars that, these mitigation projects would qualify for, correct?
I believe so. And many transit or transportation projects in the state are a mix of local, state, and federal money. So even things that would apply under this bill would still, I think, involve some federal support.
Right. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
their transportation trust fund expenditures increased by $500,000 in FY 25 to engage its expert consultants, and then general fund $120,000 in fiscal 2025. So it will impact our transportation trust fund. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much. Are there any other questions from the committee? Okay, thank you very much, everyone. We have a virtual witness, Patty Stevens with the Eastern Shore Trails Network. Patty Stevens with the Eastern Shore Trail Network on Zoom, joining us virtually. If you could turn on your video and your audio.
Good afternoon to committee members. Thank you for allowing me to testify remotely, which saved 200 miles of vehicle travel from my home in Worcester County. I am the chair of the Worcester County Bike and Pedestrian Coalition and a founding member of the Eastern Shore Trails Network. The Trails Network represents 8 Eastern Shore counties with a shared commitment to creating a regional network of trails to connect people to opportunities and resources using active transportation, walking and biking. And I'm here speaking on behalf of the network in support of House Bill 836. The Eastern Shore of Maryland has fewer trails than the rest of the state, and indeed than the rest of the Mid-Atlantic region. And part of the reason is the lack of capacity in our rural local governments and a lack of funds to meet match requirements for the available federal grants and in some cases state grants. Roadway expansion that is focused on getting more vehicles to the shore faster has resulted in infrastructure that divides communities and cuts off routes that for many years people used to walk, bike, and even ride horses between and within towns. With limited public transportation and few sidewalks on the Eastern Shore, people who were unable to drive due to economic or physical limitations now have few safe alternatives to get where they need to go. The Transportation and Climate Act would create resources to design complete streets that are safe for all forms of transportation. Mitigation projects could help build trails, sidewalks, and safe intersections across the state, enabling people to get to jobs, schools, shopping, and recreation using non-motorized transportation, thus reducing vehicle miles traveled and greenhouse gas emissions. This bill helps Maryland achieve bold goals for multimodal transportation, for public health, and for environmental restoration. Policymakers in Colorado and Minnesota, where similar bills have been enacted, have seen increased bike and pedestrian funding of millions of dollars as a result of
Ms. Stevens, thank you very much. We could summarize it up for us. Thank you.
I urge you to pass House Bill 836 to align Maryland's transportation and climate goals. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Stevens, for joining us virtually. Are there any questions from the committee for Ms. Stevens? We also have members of the Environment and Transportation Committee joining us. We have Delegate Stewart, Delegate Naraki, and Delegate Morgan. Do any of these gentlemen have any questions for? Okay, great. Thank you very much. Thank you, Ms. Stevens, for joining us.
Thank you.
That concludes the bill hearing for House Bill 836. The committee will now move on to House Bill 842. Delegate Taveras, Environmental Justice, Investment and Infrastructure Construction Projects.
Good day, everyone. All right, let me see those smiles. Thank you, Chair Chang. So thank you, esteemed committee members and Appropriations Committee. as well. Sorry, and EMT colleagues as well for being here. It is an honor to be before you. I'm here to ask for your favorable report on HB 842. H42 is a bill that creates a commission to ensure that Justice 40 funds are allocated appropriately to disadvantaged and neglected communities and are equally dispersed to at least 40% of underrepresented MBEs that reflect the communities that they're looking to serve. In this legislation, we're looking for opportunities to build capacity, workforce development, and build up MBEs so that they are able to compete at a larger scale. For the first time in history, as part of the Investing in America agenda, President Joe Biden set a goal of dedicating 40% of federal government-wide investment in climate, green energy, housing, and other infrastructure investments to be dedicated to disadvantaged communities that historically have been marginalized by underinvestment and overburdened by pollution. This effort is popularly now known as the Justice 40 Initiative. In Maryland, as of January 2024, there have been $12 billion invested in 174 projects. However, the vast majority of these projects have do not reflect the needs of my community. To date, only 3 states in the country have designated how their Justice 40 money should be spent: California, New York, and South Carolina. To ensure actual investments are made to critical areas in those states so that no community was left behind. While I applaud everything our great state has done to move the climate change issue forward, even properly defining disadvantaged communities, we need to ensure that we are in fact investing in critical projects in disadvantaged communities. Respectfully, the $1 million fiscal note as drafted, I feel is equally out of touch because we need to correct some misunderstandings that are occurring with the bill as currently drafted and what's happening. I think that we can resolve that to make sure that things are being done within existing resources, based on the last conversations I've had over this morning. And so the fact is, studies consistently show our current environmental policies benefit the well-to-do and are subsidized by the poor and disenfranchised who see no benefit. This is our opportunity to correct that at no real cost to the state. At a dire financial time like this, we as a government cannot afford to work in silos. Justice 40, if implemented properly, is a vital step towards racial and economic equity. We all know that communities of color disproportionately bear the brunt of climate change and are victimized by their very environmental surroundings. Because no one is looking comprehensively on how we can use the environmental space to prevent crime through an urban design concept called CTED. Areas like Langley Park continue to be plagued by crime, drug use, and inaffordable, unsustainable, benign neglect housing. This is our time to correct that when the federal investment dollars are there. If not now, when? If not us, who? In conclusion, HB 842 is needed to ensure equitable distribution of federal government-wide funding that's already coming here, so that disadvantaged communities like mine can access the resources needed for safe, affordable, sustainable, and healthy living. Why? This is why I asked for your favorable report on HB 842. and I'm open for questions.
Great. Thank you very much, Delegate Taveras, for introducing the bill. Are there any questions from members of the committee? This afternoon, we have joining us from the Environment and Transportation Committee, Delegate Ruth and Delegate Morgan. We have a question from Delegate Ruth for the Environment and Transportation Committee.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Delegate Taveras. I was looking at MDE's testimony and it seemed like they have a lot of logistical issues. I just wondered if you'd had a conversation with them, if you're working with them.
I did. Turns out that we've had a miscommunication. I shared the bill with them around August, September of last year. And because of changing of staff, we had a mix-up, ships crossing each other in the night, so to speak. And so we will be getting together to ensure that there is a confluence of the definition, which I had already thought they had approved, but we can revisit to ensure that the definition is the same. And we can renegotiate the structure to ensure that this is also aligned with some of the other initiatives, because if you'll notice, the child poverty initiative that the governor is putting forward, it aligns zip code by zip code with the same areas that we're discussing. So I think that there's a lot of overlap in everything that we're doing if we can all come to the table.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much, Delegate Ruth. We have a question from Delegate Acevedo.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Delegate Taveras, for bringing this bill and really just in an attempt to address an issue that we know has been going on for some time, disinvestment or underinvestment in certain communities. Wanted to speak to the bill specifically under the administration of certain federal funds. They had listed the prioritization of some projects based on various criteria from advancing environmental justice, increase labor and workforce standards, et cetera. Was there any discussion or are we certain that MBEs or minority business enterprises would be incorporated in this bill as it relates to construction? You know, we have a problem with MBE participation in this state. And so just wanted to make sure if there's any consideration around like MBEs as it relates to these construction projects as one of the criteria.
Well, thank you for raising that point, Delegate Acevedo. I think that respectfully, that may be the reason for the opposition that we see, given that this bill requires that 40% of the money that's directed to these communities be directed to MBEs. And hence, given the concern raised by some of these trade associations.
Yeah, appreciate that. Just wanted to make sure, especially when, you know, we're talking about like, you know, construction and whatnot and particular communities, want to make sure.
Yeah, but I just want to make sure that we're also not just talking about construction projects. And I think that that's, we need to amplify the language to also be reflective of the Justice 40, which includes climate change mitigation, affordable housing, affordable and sustainable housing, green energy, and other investments. So if we could make it vague enough, I think we could open up the umbrella so that we could also bring Department of Transportation and some of the other government agencies on board.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Not a problem.
Thank you, Delegate Acevedo. Are there any questions for the bill sponsor? Okay, great. This afternoon, we have joining us several witnesses who are joining us virtually. We have Darrell Jones, Greater Washington Region Clean Cities Coalition, Ruby Stemley with Eco Latinos, Jacoby Wilson with the University of Maryland. If any of those witnesses are on, if they could please turn your camera on and then also turn the audio on and start in 2 minutes. If you're gonna mute yourself and then state your name. Darrell Jones, Ruby Stemley, Jacoby Wilson. Okay, we have Jacoby Wilson who's joining us. Jacoby Wilson could turn on the camera and also unmute.
Ms. Ruby said that she's in the waiting room. She's not being allowed in.
Okay. We'll go ahead and start with Jacoby Wilson. Thank you for joining us virtually. Jacoby Wilson, if you could provide your testimony in 2 minutes, we'd appreciate it.
Thank you. So my name is Dr. Jacoby Wilson. I'm a professor at the University of Maryland, College Park. I am I do a lot of environmental justice work, and I'm really excited about this bill. I was the founding co-chair of the Justice 40 and Finances Working Group for the National Environmental Justice Advisory Council. And what's really important about Justice 40 is related to President Biden's Executive Order 14008, as we move from a dirty energy economy to a clean energy economy, to make sure that 4% of the benefits of federal investments go to disadvantaged communities. At the state level, we should make sure that the minimum, that is a floor, not the ceiling. We should make sure a minimum of 40% of the benefits go to disadvantaged communities in our state. I believe we've made some progress in the state on environmental justice. You look at the governor's plan on environmental justice, you look at the MD Secretary's emphasis on environmental justice, but we need to have legislation that's strong to make sure that the dollars get to the communities that are most impacted. And this is a distributional justice issue. I believe the bill has some really important elements. One thing that as an amendment I would like to see change, I don't think we need additional Justice 40 committee. We have the Maryland Commission on Environmental Justice and Communities. We can have an EJ work group. So that would be my amendment to the bill, to have a Justice 40 work group that's part of the commission. But I think the bill is strong. I think the bill is needed. I think the bill is very impactful. And I'd like to see the bill pass with amendments. So appreciate the time, committee, and I'll pass the mic back. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much, Dr. Wilson. Are there any questions from the committee for Dr. Wilson? Okay, we have Darrell Jones or Ruby Stemley.
Has she been let in?
Okay, Ruby Stemley, thank you for joining us. You have 2 minutes.
Yes, thank you. Good afternoon. I'm Ruby Stemley, and I'm the founder and CEO of Ecolatinos. And I'm here before you today to express my support for HB 842. I want to also extend my gratitude for your consideration of advancing the Justice 40 Act. This critical legislation addresses the pressing issue of environmental injustice by allocating a minimum 40% of federal funds to underserved communities within our state. The Justice 40 initiative outlining HB 842 offers a beacon of hope for marginalized populations, ensuring that communities bearing the disproportionate burden of environmental degradation receive the necessary support. By directing funding to areas with clear criteria of disadvantage, such as high poverty rate, non-white majorities, and limited English proficiency, we acknowledge and confront systemic inequalities and historical underinvestment. Furthermore, the initiative ensures that at least 50% of all funds are allocated to companies selected by minority business, fostering economic empowerment and sustainability within these communities. As a proud representative of Ecolatinos, a Maryland nonprofit organization deeply committed to environmental and social justice for the Latino community, I wholeheartedly endorse this initiative. The Justice 40 Act aligns perfectly with our mission of empowering Latino communities, particularly those disproportionately affected by environmental injustices. In conclusion, I urge each of you to support this bill and the Justice 40 Act, as they represent crucial steps towards fostering environmental justice, promoting equity, and building a sustainable future for all Marylanders. I encourage you to seize this opportunity to make a meaningful difference in the lives of those who have been long marginalized and neglected. Thank you for your attention and consideration.
Okay, great. Thank you very much, Ms. Stemley. Are there questions from the committee for Ms. Stemley? Great, thank you very much. Have a great afternoon. We also listed Darrell Jones. Okay, we're going to go ahead and move on, and that concludes the bill hearing for House Bill 842. Committee will now move on to House Bill 263, Delegate Chi, State Highway Administration Sidewalks and Bicycle Pathways Maintenance and Repair. Delegate Chi.
Hello. Yes, I have a small panel. Thank you. Thank you. Good afternoon, Mr. Chair and Mr. Vice Chair. Actually, could I ask you to get a resource? Okay, I have a oral witness and I also have a resource person here to answer questions in case the committee has any questions from Montgomery County. Thank you. All right, let me start again. Good afternoon, Mr. Chair and Mr. Vice Chair. It is only my second time appearing before the Appropriations Committee in my entire time of service of 6 sessions. So I feel very special. Very nice to be with you again. For the record, I'm Delegate Lily Chi here to present HB 263, which requires the State Highway Administration to maintain and repair its own sidewalks and the bike pathways. That's all it does. Right now, we have an odd and confusing situation where SHA is responsible for the construction of sidewalks along state roads. But when it comes to maintenance, it is only responsible for the roadways from curb to curb, but not the sidewalks or the bike pathways that it also constructs or along the state highways, which fall upon local jurisdictions. There are several problems with this situation. First, by focusing only on roads, we as a state are essentially prioritizing driving over walking and biking as means of transportation. This kind of car-centric mindset is outdated, as we all know. Pedestrians and cyclists need as much and deserve as much respect and attention to their needs as drivers. Second, this creates confusion. For example, either in Montgomery County or Prince George's County, 2 largest counties, if you walk down, let's say 1.5 miles, you could walk across 5 different municipalities easily. And that creates a lot of confusion as to who is responsible for which stretch of the sidewalk for maintenance and repair. Third, such a decentralized sidewalk maintenance system leads to inadequate responses to problems, which then forces pedestrians oftentimes to walk on the roads that are shared by cars. So this bill, as amended, clarifies that SHA is not responsible for such immediate needs as snow and ice removal from the sidewalks adjacent to state highways. Now, I know some of you are probably already confused because if this bill sounds familiar, it is very similar to a bill that you just recently heard called HB 349, sponsored by Delegate Healy. While both bills seek to hold SHA accountable for its own sidewalks and bike pathways, there's an essential difference, fundamental difference. HB 349 asks SHA to fund local governments for the maintenance and the repair, while my bill directly shifts responsibilities to SHA. And so the bottom line is we're asking the state, we're saying through this bill that the state should be responsible for our own properties, just like we expect the local governments to do, and to treat sidewalks and bike pathways as seriously or as well as we would roadways. So I understand that there is an opposition from SHA, understandably, because of the major fiscal concerns. But as our state and local communities are promoting Vision Zero communities, complete communities, and are increasingly encouraging walking and biking and other more environmentally sustainable means of transportation, I think it's important that we don't kick the can down the road, so to speak. So with that, I want to thank you for your consideration and want to turn to my witness, which is the mayor of Rockville, Monique Ashton.
Good afternoon, everyone. Chairman Barnes, Vice Chairman Chang, and members of the House Appropriations Committee. My name is Monique Ashton, and I am the mayor of Rockville. I also serve in the capacity of president of the Maryland Municipal League Montgomery chapter. I thank you for this opportunity. Thank you to my colleague for implementing this. This is actually a topic that the municipalities across Montgomery County has met with the county government to try to see if we can work together to get done. I can tell you that in our jurisdictions, we have more housing on state roads that wasn't there before. We have a lot more people and density, and that's a good thing. We want transit-oriented growth. We want to make space for more people, but we need to engineer and make sure that the sidewalks are there and maintained. And that is what this bill seeks to do. That has been an area of confusion and concern for our municipalities, as well as throughout the county. In concert with Montgomery County, Rockville requests that we consider that the state do manage and support the snow removal, because that is not something that we are set up to do. But we do strongly and unanimously on behalf of the council support that the SHA maintain and repair sidewalks on state-owned roads. This will help support our Vision Zero goals. I know that that is a changing culture, that we're trying to support pedestrian and bike safety and make sure that people don't feel like they have to get in cars. Maintaining safe, accessible sidewalks is critical. It's important for people to get to work every day, to get to school, and we ask that you support this bill.
I do have a county representative, deputy director of the Montgomery County Department of Transportation here for questions if the committee does.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Delegate Chief, for bringing the bill. Good friend, Delegate Chief, bringing the bill. Now, it was mentioned the cost for SHA and the hit that I guess SHA would have to absorb for doing this. But what is the cost for localities who are currently doing it right now? Do we know? Yeah.
I don't have the number, and I would like to have my friend from Montgomery County comment on that from a county perspective, and the mayor can comment on this from city perspective.
Because I imagine there's a cost for localities,
Absolutely.
right?
Yeah.
And those are the folks who are absorbing it right now. So of course, they're gonna say what cost it is. So what's.
Yeah.
For the record, Emma Balanin, Deputy Director of Montgomery County Department of Transportation. I don't have specific numbers, but I would estimate we're spending somewhere on the estimated level of about $3 to $5 million on sidewalk maintenance throughout the county. So some of that is, attributed to the state roads as well as the county roads that we are and should be responsible to maintain.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Delegate, for bringing this important bill. Mayor Ashton, always great to see you. I am obviously quite familiar with the challenges that municipalities have on this issue, but since we do have Montgomery County's Deputy Director of Transportation here, I know you answered the question about the cost, but I was wondering if you could tell us a little bit more about the county's experience with the challenges and the confusion on this issue more broadly. Thank you.
Thank you, Delegate. And yes, I can. I'll give you a primary example of the kind of confusion that currently happens. There's a lot of trees in the lawn panel adjacent to the curb between there and the sidewalk or behind the sidewalk. Those trees, when the roots grow, as the trees grow, the roots grow out and they upheave the sidewalk. And we constantly argue with State Highway about whether that's a maintenance issue or a damage issue caused by the tree. They're responsible for the tree, we're responsible for the sidewalk. There's simply confusion as to who's doing what, and it becomes an issue every time that subject comes up. Beyond that, there's the issue of pedestrian safety. The state should be responsible for all modes, all users of the transportation system that is responsible for bicycles, pedestrians and vehicles, not just being a car-centric organization only focused on vehicle safety along its infrastructure.
Thank you.
May I add a comment to that? Is that okay? Just to answer your question.
Yes, please. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. I just wanted to note that in the city of Rockville, we have mapped the most pressing fatalities, well, all fatalities pressing, but the most serious crashes. And just to be clear, they're all along state highway roads. And we have mapped around 54 of the most serious crashes and fatalities. And we're trying to work with SHA. Sidewalk maintenance is a big part of it, and improvements, but we see it as an equity issue as well, because we have, particularly in our community, if you look at Veers Mill, 355, we have a lot of people who are living along those lines who are just trying to get to work every day and represent some of our underrepresented communities. And they're the ones most at risk, and that's not fair. We need to move from being car-centric to helping people be able to get to school and work every day.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you for bringing the bill, Delegate Cheat. I would like to ask your county expert, if you have a housing development located on a county road with a sidewalk, who is responsible for shoveling the sidewalk in front of the house?
The current law in Montgomery County generally requires the adjacent property owner to clear snow and ice from the sidewalk. There are limited number of miles where the county is responsible by way of county law because there is no other responsible entity. But generally speaking, the county Department of Transportation or no other county entity is responsible for snow and ice removal. It's typically, and we think this is consistent with the laws in most local jurisdictions throughout the state.
Right. So on your own county roads, the property owner removes the ice and snow for the sidewalks that you have installed.
That's correct.
Or that a developer has installed.
Correct.
Okay. The fiscal note on this bill and on the previous bill was between $1 and $10 million for MDOT to cover this for all of the counties. So that is a challenge, but we thank you, and I thank you for bringing the bill and look forward to maybe talking with you offline about it.
Thank you.
Delegate McComas.
Thanks, sir. I just have a quick question. Obviously, to do cement sidewalks is going to cost a lot more money than, let's say, if it was like a trail, which had, like a Northern Central or the Ma and Pa Trail in Harford County. In other words, it would be more of a gravel, but at least it would allow much easier passage than if they're, going over, a rough patch where there's like weeds and, it's all irregular. So I was just kind of wondering, would that lower the cost as far as the fiscal note from 1 to 10 million?
I would assume, but it depends on what the road original condition is or whether it's suitable to pave it in certain ways, right? We have an expert here.
Yeah, generally speaking, natural path trails are not often installed. They are in some park settings, but generally along the public right of way for ADA purposes, they are usually either a concrete sidewalk or a bituminous asphalt sidewalk pavement.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Thank you, Mr.
For the county expert who is with us now.
Sorry.
Are you allowed to use highway user revenues for that type of maintenance?
We are. That highway user revenue that the county receives pales in comparison to what our overall DOT budget is. Our general fund budget for roadway maintenance activities is on the order of $60 million. We receive somewhere on the order of about 15 million in highway user revenues.
Information. Thanks for being with us.
Thank
you all.
you.
Have a great day. Thank you, Delegate. Good to see you.
Thank you.
That concludes the bill hearing. Now we'll move to House Bill 849, Delegate Acevero. Oh, the delegate, there he is. All right. So give one witness. If that is part of your panel, you can bring them up, or however you'd like to do it.
All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, colleagues, members of the Appropriations Committee. For the record, Delegate Gabriel Acevero here to present House Bill 849, Universal Basic Income for Transition Age Youth, which essentially would establish a program within the Department of Human Services that would provide our youth, those who are transitioning out of our foster care system between the ages of 18 till they turn 21, with direct cash assistance so that they're able to meet their basic needs. When passed, it will establish a much needed lifeline for youth transitioning out of our state's foster care system, as I mentioned. And it is particularly timely given that foster youth represent one of our state's most vulnerable populations, especially as we're coming out of the COVID-19 pandemic. When passed, House Bill 849 will provide a hand up in the form of unconditional cash payments in the amount of $1,000 per month to youth transitioning out of the foster care system here in Maryland. Without familial and financial support, young people aging out of our state's foster care system often face daunting odds. But this bill is designed to provide not only some kind of relief, but also to send a signal to our foster care youth that they're not just seen, but even though they may not have familial support, that kind of financial support certainly exists so that they're able to meet their basic needs as well as to thrive. Indeed, we've seen the impacts of direct cash assistance following the pandemic, and the kind of an impact that it had on our everyday, lives for our neighbors who were able to then invest that money right back into the community in things that they really needed, from housing to basic needs such as food, et cetera. And so providing a guaranteed income is a way of meeting this challenge in a very increasingly difficult economy. I know that we are certainly, for lack of a better way of putting it, strapped for cash this fiscal year, but this is one of those bills that I think we should seriously be looking at as it relates to our foster care system. More nationally, there really is no state that is leading in terms of a foster care system that takes care of our young people and prepares them for their inevitable transition. And so this is one way that our state, Maryland, can essentially stand out, show the rest of the country that, we not only care about our kids, and when we say our kids, that includes foster care youth who are transitioning out of our system. And so for those reasons, colleagues, I ask for a favorable report on House Bill 849. Thank you.
Bill, any questions from the committee? Okay, we do have some folks here, I think. Teresa Hessler, good to see you. And we have an online witness as well. So welcome.
Thank you so much. Good to see you as well. Good afternoon, Chair, Vice Chair, and members of the committee. For the record, my name is Teresa Hessler, and I'm here today representing the Maryland Association of Resources for Families and Youth to express our support for House Bill 849, a pivotal piece of legislation designed to empower our youth that are aging out of foster care placement programs by establishing a universal basic income program. These programs can drastically enhance the lives of youths aging out of foster care. These individuals often face daunting challenges, homelessness, unemployment, and educational disruptions being the most prevalent. This bill offers a lifeline, ensuring the financial stability essential for a smoother transition to independence. The UBI program is more than just monetary assistance. It's a tool for empowerment, enabling those young adults to invest in their education, secure stable housing, and meet essential living expenses. It's about providing a safety net that respects their autonomy, allowing them to allocate funds as they see fit, and fostering a sense of responsibility that paves the way for long-term success. We have evidence from jurisdictions in California where similar initiatives have yielded remarkable outcomes. Recipients have utilized their support to further their education, stabilize their housing, and attain financial security, debunking the myths of fiscal irresponsibility and demonstrating the capability to thrive when given the opportunity. In conclusion, House Bill 849 is not just an investment in the individuals it directly benefits, but a wise investment in our community's future. By supporting this bill, we are affirming our commitment to a society where every young person transitioning out of foster care has the support they need to succeed. Thank you.
Questions? Okay, thanks for your testimony. Good to see you.
Likewise.
You can bring up, we have an online witness. Aubrey Luce.
Bill, we are affirming our commitment to a society.
Right, you have 2 minutes. Welcome.
Out of foster care has the support they need.
Aubrey,
Yes, I'm here.
you're welcome. Go ahead. You have 2 minutes.
Okay, thank you. Good morning, good afternoon, Chair Barnes, Vice Chair Chang, esteemed members of the committee. My name is Aubrey Edwards-Luce. I'm a resident of Prince George's County, Maryland, and the executive director for the Sarah Neal Meyerhoff Center for Family, Children, and the Courts at the University of Baltimore School of Law. While we're committed to helping children and families thrive without unnecessary legal system involvement, we also believe that young people transitioning from foster care should be set up for stability and success. We offer enthusiastic support for House Bill 849 and proposed friendly amendments. As a former guardian ad litem attorney, I walked alongside transition-aged youth in foster care as they prepare to age out, and it was always an incredibly anxious and volatile time for my clients. The stress my clients felt as they tried to figure out meeting their most essential needs without a safety net negatively influenced every aspect of their lives. Their sleep, their health, their parenting decisions, their housing plans, their employment and education decisions were all influenced by their impending sense of abandonment. And the stress that they had was warranted, as aging out of foster care is associated with increased risk of experiencing housing instability, criminal system involvement, unemployment, and physical and mental health problems as well. Youth of color are at an increased risk of experiencing these challenges. In Maryland, every year, about 290 youth age out of foster care. If enacted, the unrestricted cash payments provided by House Bill 849 will provide eligible youth with 3 very important things: the experience of equity and normalcy as experienced by their peers who are not being raised by the state, the opportunity to develop financial literacy and budget management skills, as well as financial stability to avoid the costly negative outcomes that are often associated with aging out. These payments are fair and needed and a smart investment in Maryland's young people. We urge you to support HB 849 with amendments.
Thank you so much for joining us in your testimony. Any questions? Okay, have a great day. Thank you. That concludes the bill hearing. We're going to now move to HB 376. I believe Delegate Balfo is here with us from Prince George's delegation.
All right, thanks so much, Mr. Chair, Mr. Vice Chair, and members of the Appropriations Committee. For the record, Delegate Adrian Boafo, here in my role as the Chair of the Education Subcommittee for Prince George's County House Delegation, and I'm here to present House Bill 376, the study on feasibility on relocating the Prince George's County Public School System, also known in our delegation as PG 10524. HB 376 requires the Prince George's County Board of Education to hire an independent consultant to complete a comprehensive study on the feasibility of relocating our board headquarters. Additionally, the county board is responsible for establishing and soliciting a process to procure the services of an independent consultant, with the cost of the study being covered by the Prince George's County Council. The independent consultant is required to deliver its findings and recommendations to the county board by December 31st, 2024. PG 50124 was unanimously voted out of the Prince George's County House delegation, and I urge a favorable report. Mr. Chair, I know that there is some favorable with amendments. I'll tell the committee that the Prince George's County House delegation has considered those and will be sending those to the committee in due time here.
On the local delegation bill. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you.
Have a good day. That concludes the bill hearing. Now move to House Bill 815, Delegate Spiegel. Settle in there, Delegate Spiegel. I think I may have missed a virtual witness on the last. Go ahead and settle in there. Is there a virtual witness on there for the last bill? Is there a Sarah Franklin? Okay, pull her up. I apologize.
I don't know what I would say is normal.
It's okay. You can just testify with your, with the audio if you want. So local delegation bills passed
Sorry.
out. Did you want to add anything? Sarah Franklin?
Hold on, guys.
All right, Sarah, we're gonna give you just one more second, then we're gonna have to move on.
Can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you. Go ahead.
Oh,
You-
I'm sorry. I didn't
you have 1
realize that
minute.
you couldn't hear me. All right.
1 minute.
Well, thank you for allowing me to speak to you about House Bill 367. This proposes the comprehensive study on the feasibility of the county school board headquarters. We support this bill with amendments. We understand the need for new or revitalized building for the school, but we are concerned about it having an abandoned building in the town. The town of Upper Marlboro is about 1 square mile. And so about 60% of it is government-owned non-taxable property, which puts the burden on the 300 remaining households to bear the costs of having these abandoned buildings around. The risks associated with as they deteriorate, the attractiveness they pose to individuals who might want somewhere to sleep for the night, and just the broken windows theory. So the amendments that we're proposing are on page 1, line 15 through 16, to incorporate studying future use and remediation of the headquarters if a different site is selected. And on page 3, lines 10 through 11, if the site is selected, that the county would remediate the site, and that would not be put on the town.
Great. And I think the representative from the delegation said they had your amendments and they would take it up in delegation. So are there any questions for the witness? Okay, thank you so much for being with us in your testimony and providing the amendments.
Thank you so much.
Have a great day.
Bye.
All right, we're gonna move Delegate Spiegel, House Bill 815.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Vice Chair, members of our committee, visitors from Ways and Means. For the record, Delegate Ryan Spiegel presenting House Bill 815, which would establish a pilot program to operate a network of financial empowerment centers across the state. You may be asking yourself, what is a financial empowerment center and why do we need them? I'm so glad you asked. And we have some very nice brochures, which I'll make available to the committees as well. There are a variety of other financial education programs among some of our agencies and nonprofit partners around the state. And you've heard a few other great bills this session on financial literacy. But while others focus on providing financial education in the academic environment at K through 12 schools or for university students, HB 815 is designed to provide something else, services primarily to underrepresented adults out in the community who may not have had the background or education to deal with issues of debt, credit, and personal budgeting. We have a substantial population in Maryland of what we call unbanked or underbanked adult residents, many of whom live and work in socioeconomically disadvantaged communities where access to and education about financial services have historically been denied. As a result, many individuals who are already struggling are turning to unsafe and predatory alternatives, losing out on protections and benefits ranging from building a credit score history to earning interest on their money or getting approvals for mortgages. Many are also trapped in a cycle of debt and shut out of the system of access to capital. Financial empowerment centers, or FECs, are a proven approach to address this inequity by providing people with free, hands-on, one-on-one financial coaching in multiple languages. Local FECs piloted around the country have measured their own effectiveness by collecting and analyzing anonymized data from clients. And with that data-driven approach, we've seen the truly transformative impacts of these services for families. You're going to hear testimony from the Gaithersburg FEC showing that in just the first year or two, one local center has helped clients accomplish hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt reduction, as well as hundreds of thousands of new dollars saved by establishing savings accounts and budget plans. Other notable metrics include the number of points that credit scores were increased and the number of goals, both large and small, that clients have achieved, whether it's being able to save for a down payment for a first home, or send a child to college, or start their own business, or eliminate a crippling debt. This isn't theoretical. These are real, measurable, life-changing results. And that's just for one center in one city for just 1 year. And while they can certainly help connect their clients to services that already exist, like income tax prep assistance, these centers are something different that is not offered by other programs. And that's precisely why we have favorable testimony in the bill file. You're going to hear from the cash campaign here today, but we also have testimony from the Bankers Association, Howard County Executive Calvin Ball, the Catholic Conference, the Realtors, and the University of Maryland School of Social Work, because they all understand that financial empowerment centers are proven to offer a tremendous return on investment. There are ripple effects on our state and local economies as families have more funds to spend in the community, and the promise of positive impacts on the budget pressures of our social safety net as more people start to attain more financial stability and independence. HB 815 is a modest first step to expanding access to these services by having a pilot program of financial coaches available in a handful of locations across the state. Under the bill, the pilot is set to begin in fiscal year 2026 and run 2 years, minimizing the impact for fiscal year 2025's budget. I also want to note we have submitted a sponsor's amendment to move the program from the Department of Commerce to the Comptroller's Office. Direct aid to those in need is obviously very important and aligns with our values as a compassionate state. But as a matter of equity, it's also critical to provide the tools and educational resources that can help address the root causes of poverty. If we want to have a more permanent impact and make more progress in addressing the generational wealth gap and systemic barriers to access and opportunity, we should also be investing in programs like these to give underserved Marylanders the support to build financial stability for a lifetime and then pass on those benefits and lessons to future generations. In the interest of time, I'll refer you to my written testimony for additional background and to the witness panel, for whom I'm very grateful. But given the nature of these programs and the return on investment and the transformative impacts on people's quality of life and future economic opportunities, as well as the long-term benefit to the state, I ask for a favorable report on House Bill 815 and would be happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Panel, I neglected to welcome the friends from Ways and Means joining us. They're secondary on the bill, Delegate Roberts, Delegate Wells. Thank you. Whoever that guy is. So welcome. We'll hear from the panel now.
Chair, Vice Chair, and members of the committee, thank you for the opportunity to testify in support for House Bill 815. My name is Lona Muckle, and I'm the Senior Policy Associate for the Cash Campaign of Maryland. CASH stands for Creating Savings, Assets, and Hope, and we promote the economic advancement for low to moderate income individuals and families in Baltimore and across Maryland. More than half of our clients earn less than $20,000 per year, with many earning less than $10,000. First, I want to start off by saying thank you to Delegate Spiegel for your work in Gaithersburg and for bringing it with you to the House of Delegates. This bill will establish a pilot program for financial empowerment centers in Maryland. CASH has been a long-term supporter of FECs by helping them get established, training navigators, and participating on steering committees. We recognize FECs as important tools to improve liquid asset poverty rates, assess affordable credit products, and give residents access to financial counselors. CASH knows that financial counseling and coaching works because through our free financial services offered, 48% of our clients reduced consumer debt and 58% of our clients increased their credit score by an average of 37 points. FECs bring trained financial counselors to communities to help residents meet financial goals at no cost. All Marylanders should have access to education and knowledge that will help them overcome current financial barriers and prepare them to make good financial decisions in the future. For these reasons, we strongly encourage a favorable report for House Bill 815.
Good afternoon. I'm Leslie McDonald, and I am the project manager for the Financial Empowerment Center in the city of Gaithersburg. I'm pleased to testify in favor of House Bill 815. The city of Gaithersburg established a Financial Empowerment Center in 2020. We're one of 35 cities across the country to adopt this successful national model developed by Cities for Financial Empowerment. The model calls for free professional financial counseling offered as a public service of a municipality. Our partner in this effort is Housing Initiative Partnerships, a local nonprofit. The Financial Empowerment Center clients work with professional financial counselors to pay down debt, improve credit scores, adopt savings behaviors, and connect to safe, low-cost banking products. It goes beyond mere financial literacy in that it is a coaching model that meets people where they are, addresses their current issues, and puts them on a path to success, changing behavior along the way. There's a great need for financial counseling in Maryland. The high cost of living, high interest rates on credit cards, student loan debt, and predatory lending impact our residents. People fall into debt for many reasons, including divorce, a health emergency, an unexpected repair. And 20% of Maryland households can be considered asset poor. If you're in asset poverty, you can't save for the future and you risk falling into debt with any crisis. Some of the people we've served at the Gaithersburg FEC include a divorced father of two whose credit card debt is in danger of surpassing his income. A government employee who learned that her job was in danger because her debt led to a downgrade in her security clearance. A young couple whose credit card debt threatened the stability of their marriage. And people in recovery from substance use who need to rebuild their financial lives. Expert financial counseling puts people on a path to financial security and prosperity. In our 2 years of operation, 477 residents have saved together over $330,000 and paid down over $800,000 worth of debt. I encourage you to issue a favorable report on HB 815. Thank you.
Thank you. Good afternoon. My name is Carrie Cook, and through my employer Housing Initiative Partnership, a nonprofit organization that works in both Prince George's County and Montgomery County, and their collaboration with the city of Gaithersburg, I'm very lucky to have the best job around getting to counsel individuals and couples on matters related to their money and in turn their lives. Only 2 years ago, the Gaithersburg Financial Empowerment Center was born, and already we have provided one-on-one financial counseling to almost 500 clients. And as Leslie just mentioned, who have eliminated over $898,000 of consumer debt. And there are so many client stories to tell, like the story of a recently divorced 40-year-old African-American woman who admits to leaning on credit cards soon after her marriage ended. When she first came to me, she was overwhelmed by 8 creditors, all with very high interest rates, 2 of them at 30%. We immediately began the task of creating a workable monthly budget and identifying a prioritization plan to pay down debt, 1 creditor at a time. She has been at work on this since October of last year, and I'm happy to say that she has now paid off 3 of her 8 credit cards. Another client recently told me in a session when we pulled her credit report together and found that her score had gone up by 30 points, that she cannot believe the strides that she has made thus far at the FEC. She thanked me and the program for the help, but I praised her and told her that, as something that I tell all of my clients, that I, as the counselor, am not really doing the real work, that I am merely there to challenge my clients to stay the course and providing the validation that they need. People all over this state are struggling with high cost and crushing debt. They have little to no savings. They're living paycheck to paycheck, and they too deserve access to such a coach. It's for this reason I'm very happy to represent today the Gaithersburg Financial Empowerment Center, who vehemently support HB 815. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Monique Ashton, Mayor of Rockville. I'm here to support this bill, and our council fully supports it as well. Thank you, Delegate Spiegel, for sponsoring this important legislation. The city of Rockville initiated its Bank on Rockville program in 2022, and it's an outgrowth of the nationwide Bank on program established by the Cities for Financial Empowerment Fund. Rockville's program increases the financial capability of residents experiencing fiscal difficulty by providing access to safe and affordable financial products that protect and build assets. Community-based financial workshops and income tax preparation are also provided. Program outcomes are centered on increasing the number of vulnerable residents that are connected to safe and affordable bank accounts, decreasing the number of predatory financial services they often experience, as well as boosting overall financial literacy and capacity. It's our sincere hope that you will proceed in supporting HB 815. And I would also say, from a personal perspective and being vulnerable before all of you, I was someone who was low income on financial assistance. My mother did participate in programs like this and got career counseling and was able to move into full employment, and I was able to go to college. This is not just a program or a bill number, this is people. And if we can help people get a leg up and help themselves, we can have more sustainable communities. Thank you.
Much to the bill sponsor, Madam Mayor, and to the panelists for providing testimony today. Are there any questions from members of the committee? Delegate Wallach.
Mr. Vice Chair, and thank you to Delegate Spiegel for bringing the bill. My question is with regard to the letter of information that was submitted by the Department of Commerce. If you mind commenting on some of the points that they raised.
Thank you, Delegate, and thank you for your advocacy on financial empowerment as well, particularly on college campuses. The original bill was drafted to locate the program within the Department of Commerce. I am not sure why, but that's how it was drafted. But after a consultation with the agencies, we submitted a sponsor's amendment, as I mentioned earlier, to move the program to the Comptroller's office. The Comptroller has expressed enthusiasm for the bill and supports providing more services to Marylanders to focus on financial empowerment. So the Comptroller's office seems like the natural fit for this pilot program, especially given that they have 11 regional offices already existing around the state that could be bases for this program. And that's really all that Commerce's letter of information said. That's what they submitted, is that they agreed that it should be housed with the Comptroller. And so we agreed with them and we submitted that sponsor's amendment. Let me also add that because the fiscal note was originally written to assume that the centers would be run through the Department of Commerce, obviously the estimated cost was higher because Commerce does not have the infrastructure to operate such a program and would have had to build it from scratch. And by moving it to the Comptroller's office, I'm confident that the operating cost will be substantially lower than what the fiscal note projected. And additionally, the bill as written does not mandate a specific amount. It only calls for the governor to include a discretionary appropriation in the budget for the pilot program in fiscal years 26 and 27. So that gives us some flexibility in how large or small we want the scale of the pilot to be. Thank you.
Delegate Forbes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Delegate Spiegel, for bringing the bill, and thank you for your work on this important topic. The Cash Campaign has been doing similar work to this for years. How do you see your program complementing or collaborating with them?
Nope, you don't.
All right. Well, okay, there we go. Thank you for your question, Delegate Forbes. So we already have a lot of partnerships with local FECs. So we will definitely offer our support in terms of helping train navigators and helping to form the structure of FECs and make sure that they have all the materials and resources that they need to operate.
If I may also add, Delegate, first of all, thank you for your work as well, particularly with K through 12 financial literacy programs. I very much appreciate that aspect of the broader picture of what we're doing with financial literacy and financial empowerment. There are a few FECs or similar programs that exist within the state, a few, Gaithersburg's, of course. And if you look in the bill file, you'll see a couple references to one or two other similar, but not exactly the same programs. The idea here is to spread this program to places that don't have it already. So we're not trying to duplicate existing services. We're trying to create a state pilot to address those communities that don't currently have access to these types of services.
Thank you, and thank you for bringing the bill. And I also appreciate the changing it to the comptroller's office because they already have regional offices in places where you could perhaps set up part of this in the space that they're already paying rent on. And so that was a brilliant move. So thank you.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much, Delegate Forrest, for the question. Are there any other questions from members of the committee or the bill sponsor or panel here? Okay, great. Thank you very much. Well, let me ask you this actually also with the members of Ways and Means who are here presented. Any questions? Okay. That concludes the bill hearing for House Bill 815. Committee will now move on to House Bill 1432, presented by Delegate Miller. Education Pre-Kindergarten Withholding of County Board Funding Blueprint Accountability and Flexibility Act of 2024. This afternoon from the Ways and Means Committee, we have Delegate Hartman and Delegate Young who are also here.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair and members of the Appropriations Committee. For the record, I am Delegate April Miller, and I am here to ask for a favorable report on House Bill 1432, which would delay the implementation of the pre-kindergarten timelines, place accountability of student success as a part of the matrix that will evaluate successful implementation of Maryland's Blueprint for Education, and enable the AIB to hold LEAs accountable for any identified inappropriate spending. Maryland is investing billions of dollars in K-12 education in the coming years, with significant budget deficits looming and concerns about how to pay for this investment. We must ensure that these dollars are spent appropriately. We have seen in the last few years reports of misspending in our school systems. No area of the state is immune to this problem. Recent audit findings in both Montgomery and Baltimore County, for example, have cost taxpayers over $1 million in misappropriated funds. This bill grants the Accountability and Implementation Board additional powers that guarantee accountability when it comes to inappropriate spending. Under the bill, the AIB must establish a plan to withhold funding from a county board for inappropriate spending discovered in fiscal audits, an annual school-based expenditure report, or an investigation by the Inspector General for Education. This legislation is not overly prescriptive, and while it requires the board to establish standards and establish a plan to withhold funding if necessary, it does not require the board to withhold funding in every case. This gives the board reasonable flexibility to determine the need to withhold funding on a case-by-case basis. Not only does it give the bill give the AIB the necessary tools to fight against inappropriate spending, the bill also makes sure that the blueprint is improving education in Maryland. This legislation gives the AIB the ability to also withhold funding should MCAP scores be unsatisfactory. Again, the legislation does not require the AIB to withhold funding. It requires them to set the standards and establish a process to withhold funding while still giving the AIB the option to withhold funds at their discretion. This bill also provides flexibility. Flexibility not only for local boards of education, but also for the state of Maryland as we battle budget constraints for fully funding the multi-billion-dollar blueprint. This bill simply extends by 3 years the deadlines as they relate to pre-kindergarten expansion. And it gives the boards additional time they need to address the various challenges they are experiencing when it comes to pre-K expansion. These vigorous timelines of the implementation of pre-kindergarten and the creation of public-private partnerships have led to many unintended consequences and funding challenges for counties of all sizes that must be addressed. The 3-year pause gives us time to study the impact, especially on our private providers and childcare industry as a whole. If we continue down this path or decrease the number of public-private partnerships required, we will end up taking a greater number of 3- and 4-year-olds into the public school system. This will cause a major disruption in the availability of local childcare. Private providers rely on the higher student to staff ratio of older children to offset the high expense of lower infant to toddler staff ratios that are very cost prohibitive. They simply cannot afford to exist without balanced enrollment numbers. A lack of childcare providers will have a disparate impact on women in the workforce and single-family homes. We also need to allow capital funding for the increase of pre-K numbers to catch up with the funding model that was initially outlined in the Built to Learn Act. Prior to that, pre-kindergarten needs were not taken into account for capacity numbers at our elementary schools. It takes $1 million for each pre-K classroom that we build. Built to Learn also forces the IAC to prioritize these pre-K classrooms, which may not necessarily fit in their current educational facility master plans that school systems have devised. Delaying pre-kindergarten implementation timelines gives the IAC and local school systems some flexibility to find capital funding solutions that work best for their county. Currently, under the blueprint, there is a goal of 50% of the required pre-K spots will be provided by the public-private partnerships. The amendment we have shared establishes MSD's authority to study the status of private preschools and their ability to partner with LEAs to fulfill the partnership levels established by the blueprint, along with what modifications would be needed for success. We often hear how the blueprint is going to transform education in Maryland. That transformation should lead to some kind of measurable results and gains in student achievement. I request a favorable report on House Bill 1432. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much, Delegate Miller, for presenting the bill. Are there any questions from members of the Appropriations Committee or any of the Ways and Means members who are presented here? Okay. Delegate Hartman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Delegate Miller, do you think this is my only chance to sit in the front row of a committee?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
That concludes the bill hearing for House Bill 432. Thank you very much to the Ways and Means members who are here. The committee will now move on to House Bill 543, Delegate Henson, Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, Senior State Supplement.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the House Appropriations Committee. I'm Delegate Shanika Henson, here to present House Bill 543, Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, Senior State Supplement, Senior SNAP Benefits. House Bill 543 is a critical step towards addressing the alarming reality that many of our seniors, the very people who have spent their lives building our communities and paving the way for younger generations, are struggling to put food on the table. This legislation aims to increase the minimum monthly SNAP benefit for seniors from $40 to $75, a modest but meaningful increase. Our parents, grandparents, and elderly neighbors are facing an unacceptable choice between filling their prescriptions and filling their stomachs. We must do better. We owe it to our seniors to ensure that they have access to the basic necessities of life, including healthy, nourishing food. No one should have to choose between medicine and meals. And I'll say that again. No one should have to choose between medicine and meals, especially not those who have given so much to our community. The current maximum SNAP benefit of $40 is simply not enough, and far too many seniors are receiving that minimum benefit. House Bill 543 is an opportunity for us to show our seniors that we care, that we see their struggles, and that we are all here to help. By increasing the minimum monthly SNAP benefit to $75, we can provide a lifeline to those who need it the most. It is a small step, but it is a powerful one that can make a real difference in the lives of countless Maryland seniors. I'd like to leave you with a few facts. We know that food insecurity is growing among seniors in Maryland. Only 42% of seniors who are income eligible for SNAP benefits participate nationally. We know that increasing SNAP benefits can improve seniors' nutrition, medication adherence, and overall health, reducing their risk of chronic disease and cognitive decline. Not only that, SNAP participation and benefits levels are directly associated with reduced hospital utilization and cost amongst our low-income seniors. Thank you so much for your consideration of this very important bill, and I will make myself available for any questions.
Great. Thank you very much, Delegate Henson, for presenting this bill today. And we have any questions from members of the committee for the bill sponsor? Delegate McComas.
Delegate Henson, it's a good bill and I think sorely needed. My question to you is, do you know if Meals on Wheels is still operational? Because I know we had it in Harford County, and I know that when the gas started going up, it became an issue, and they've had them in other jurisdictions, and that has the gas increase So I think they've lost people to deliver meals, but I just was wondering if in your community, if you know it's still going and what the requirements are, if you know.
Thank you for your question, Delegate. We did have conversations with Meals on Wheels in the contemplation and assembling of this bill, and they indicated that they have had struggles, that those things that you identified, the making sure they had the budget that was adequate to get the services out, to get the transportation, to get the fuel costs funded, all those different things have been a struggle for them. But they indicated that they support this bill because this bill would supplement the efforts that they're able to do, especially when those efforts are reduced by budget constraints. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Are there any questions for the bill sponsor on this bill? This afternoon, we had joining us Barbara Hofstein with the Maryland Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics. Ms. Hofstein, thank you for being here. So come up and provide some testimony.
Yes. Good afternoon. My name is Barbara Hofstein, and today I come to represent the Maryland Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics. Our organization represents about 900 registered and licensed dietitian nutritionists in the state. Mand and I appreciate the opportunity to comment on House Bill 543, SNAP for seniors. I personally have 35 years of experience working in the intensive care units of hospitals and then moving on to long-term care facilities. I have seen a lot of malnutrition and know the consequences. According to the data presented by the Maryland Food Bank, 15% of Maryland's population is 65 years and older, and of these, 5.5% are food insecure. This means that nearly 45,000 senior citizens, 1 in 20 in Maryland, face hunger on a regular basis. This bill has a price to it, but Mand wants to demonstrate that there are increased healthcare costs with malnutrition. This bill provides, as we heard, $75 per month, up from $40. And do you know how much your monthly food bill is? There are many studies showing malnutrition in seniors contribute to chronic diseases, depression, a decrease in their activities of daily living, hindering their ability to live independently. Please read our written testimony that covers more studies than I could cover in 2 minutes. But I will say in a 2021 study, it was found that seniors enrolled in SNAP had fewer hospitalizations, emergency department appointments, admissions to long-term care facilities, and a decrease in Medicaid payments. Please consider the health benefits and decreased health costs with a favorable report on HB 543. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much, Ms. Hofstein, for providing your testimony. Are there any questions from members of the committee for Ms. Hofstein? Great, Ms. Hofstein, thank you for all your advocacy throughout the years. Really appreciate it. I know that every year you would bring your team of dietitians and
Yes.
apples to.
I should have brought an apple, shouldn't I?
Thank you for doing that over the years. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay, we have a couple of virtual witnesses who are joining us. Sarah Matthew and also David Reish with Public Justice Center. If any of those two are on, if they could please turn their camera on and then also unmute and start in 2 minutes. Sarah Matthew and David Reish. Hi, Ms. Matthews.
Hi there.
How you doing?
I'm fine. Thank you for asking.
Great. If you could provide your testimony in 2 minutes, thank you.
Yes. Good afternoon, legislators. I'm Sarah Matthews, founder and co-chair of the Empowerment Team. We are a grassroots, boots on the ground advocacy group for older adults. I'm here to plead with you to vote in favor of increasing the SNAP benefits for older adults. We are your most valuable and vulnerable citizens who not only deserve but need this increase, especially low and moderate taxpayers, both older adults aging in place, those of us who lives in senior residential housing, veterans, and retirees need your assistance. The average older adult who live in senior housing, aging in place, and retiree receives approximately $20 to $30 a month, while some veterans only receive a mere $8 a month. Older adults could be dying from the lack of foods needed to support their health conditions. Retirees who don't qualify for Meals on Wheels likewise can't benefit from programs because of income restrictions. We must rely on food from pantries to help us to eat from month to month. I deliver food weekly to older adults from these pantries because the pantries don't have the mechanism to deliver. It's the only way that I can ensure that we have food to eat until the end of the month. Also, it prevents us from having to eat canned cat food or go diving in dumpsters while fighting the rodents for this food as well. Everyone receive extra assistance but older adults. There are many of us who don't have any living relative or anyone who can contribute to us. We must count on your humanitarian support to increase the SNAP benefits, which would allow us to eat healthy meals. I could be your grandmother, your aunt. Please don't leave us behind starving. A special thank you to Delegate Henson for advocating for older adults in Maryland. Committee chair and members, thank you too for your time and consideration. Just don't leave us behind starving. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much, Ms. Matthews, for your testimony. Are there any questions from members of the committee for Ms. Matthews? Okay, thank you, Ms. Matthews. Have a great day.
Thank you.
And then we'll check to see if David Reich from Public Justice Center is here virtually. Okay, Mr. Reich, if you could unmute and turn your camera on, please, that'd be great. Thank you. Good seeing you. Virtually.
Good afternoon, and thank you for your time. My name is David Reich, and I'm a paralegal with the Health and Benefits Equity Project at the Public Justice Center. PJC supports HB 543.
Reich, if you could unmute and turn your camera on, please, that'd be great.
My apologies.
Turn off whatever the background.
Good afternoon, and thank you for your time. I'm sorry, I believe there's a delay, and I'm a paralegal with the
Yeah,
Health.
Mr. Reich, if you could turn off, if you have any other devices that are playing with
PJC
the
supports.
hearing, if you could turn it off.
Not that one.
Okay, we'll reach out to Mr. Reich. He can provide a written testimony, but it's good to see him briefly. Oh, he's back. Okay. All right, David. Mr. Reich.
My apologies. Are you able to hear me now?
Sure. You got 1 minute.
Sorry about that. Thank you for your time. I'm a paralegal with the Health and Benefits Equity Project at the Public Justice Center.
We'll reach out to Mr. Reich. He can provide a written testimony, but it's good to see him briefly.
Sorry.
Oh, he's back. Okay. All right, David. If you could turn your YouTube off. Do you have YouTube on? If you turn your YouTube off and. Okay, we're gonna go ahead and accept written testimony from him. Is that okay, Delegate Henson?
That's very welcome, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for your time.
Yeah, and actually, and also Ms. Hofstein, thank you very much for being here personally. Yeah,
Yeah.
really provide powerful testimony. Ms. Matthews, I think that really provide a lot of substance to the bill. So we appreciate it. Thank you to bill sponsor.
Thank
Thank
you.
And that concludes the bill hearing for House Bill 543. The committee will now move on to House Bill 675. Delegate Grammer here. Okay, we're going to jump down to House Bill 704, Delegate Wyval. Primary and secondary education savings account program established.
Thank you, Chairman Chang and honorable members of Appropriations. I am Delegate Wyval presenting House Bill 704, which establishes educational savings accounts for children in kindergarten through grade 12 for parents who choose to relieve the LEA or local education authority from the responsibility of educating their child. The bill does delineate the responsibilities of the Maryland State Department of Education, the parent of the eligible child, the qualifying school, and the funding mechanism, and directs MSDE to adopt regulations necessary to administer the requirements of the bill. The bill establishes educational savings accounts funding in two levels, with the Family Federal Poverty Level, or the FPL, being the determining factor. The family whose income is less than 500% of the FPL would be funded at 75% of the per pupil amount for state and local funding, and at 50% for those whose family income exceeds 500% of the FPL. For 2024, the FPL in the 48 contiguous states for a family of four is $31,200 annually, with 500% being $156,000. As written, the bill includes the student in the enrollment count of the LEA. So looking at it another way, the LEA retains either 25 or 50% of the funding without the obligation to educate the child. As an accountant, I intentionally did this so that the LEAs would be able to recover their fixed costs. House Bill 704 would help to defray the financial burden on those who might choose an alternative educational opportunity for their child. And the bill also allows parents to contribute to the ESA on a pre-tax basis. More and more states are offering this type of opportunity to families as the money would follow the child. And about 19 states today offer funding and financing programs for families to access an educational environment best suited for them. Some of these states have adopted legislation to assist students with special needs and circumstances to allow these students to excel in specialized environments. I do also have an amendment that would alter the definition of an eligible student to include a student who has been publicly funded to attend a private school. This would include those students who, for whatever reason, including special needs, are paid by the public school systems to attend that private school. I thank you for your attentiveness, and I ask for a favorable report on House Bill 704.
Thank you, Delegate Wyval. Are there any questions for the bill sponsor? Okay, great. Thank you very much. We have
Thank you.
Providing testimony, unfavorable testimony from Kezzy Funk, Strong Schools, Maryland.
Thank you, Chair Barnes, Vice Chair Chang, and members of the Appropriations Committee. My name is Kenzie Funk, and I'm here on behalf of Strong Schools Maryland as a policy associate in strong opposition of House Bill 704. At Strong Schools Maryland, we advocate for the blueprint for Maryland's future, ensuring that all students have the opportunity to reach their fullest potential and thrive upon graduation. House Bill 704, however, poses a significant risk to the progress we have made by diverting resources away from our public school education system into education savings accounts to pay for private school tuition. This undermines principles of equity, as this piece of proposed legislation helps parents opt out of the public school system to expose their children to greater opportunity, diverting public dollars to support their transfer. Why aren't we prioritizing the investment of those public dollars into the public school system? Our students should not have to rely on the diversion of public funding to fulfill the state's education obligations. We have seen the impact of education savings account legislation introduced in many other states across the country. These have resulted in the diversion of funds from public education, diminished oversight and accountability measures seen in states such as North Carolina and Arizona. Furthermore, the results often referenced to illustrate the success of these programs were found to include bias due to their small population pools that they pulled from. More recent findings showed actual negative academic impacts on student achievement in both Louisiana and Indiana associated with the passing of this model legislation. Under House Bill 704, families below 500% of the federal poverty level receive 75% of the per pupil funding, while those above 500% receive 50%. Regardless of this slight nuance, the essence of the proposed legislation remains the same, diverting crucial resources away from our public education system. And this bill is an inadequate attempt to account for equity in a bill that is inherently inequitable. For these reasons, we respectfully urge an unfavorable report on House Bill 704. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much, Ms. Funk, for your testimony. Are there any questions from members of the committee for Ms. Funk? Okay, thank you very much. Have a great day. That concludes the bill hearing for House Bill 704. The committee will now move on to House Bill 675, Delegate Grammer, primary and secondary education, educating students account program established, Maryland Universal School Choice Act. Delegate Grammer.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. For the record, Delegate Robin Grammer here to present House Bill 675, the Maryland Universal School Choice Act. District 6 and many places in the Baltimore region have faced recent scrutiny due to the recent school proficiency reports. Many residents of District 6 are and have long expressed frustration as our education achievement scores and the performance of our school system has declined precipitously over the last 10 years. What the Maryland Universal School Choice Act does to rectify this problem is implement universal education savings accounts so that no child is left behind in the state of Maryland. This bill would empower parents to hire or fire any person to deliver truly individualized education plans for their children. On a quarterly basis, the bill would require the per pupil funding required under state law to be deposited for accredited use of the student's education. These fees could be used for tuition, books, textbooks, tutoring, curriculum, online learning, or other expenses approved by the Department of Education. The most important benefit provided by school choice is the accountability for our educational systems overall. The nonprofit Ed Choice analyzed educational choice programs throughout the country. Of the 26 studies that examine the competitive effects of school choice programs in public schools, 24 found positive effects on the public school system. And I think that matches the statistics the young lady mentioned previously. She said there were 2 states that maybe had some negative benefits. There are 24 jurisdictions that found positive. The freedom of movement delivered by customized education options will guarantee that no child is stuck in a school that is failing to deliver an education, and in some cases, failing to deliver an education to every single student in an entire grade. We are allowing the system to steal the education and the future of our children. Our education system should not be about money. Funds should follow students, not bureaucracies. With that, I'd be happy to take questions, and I'd ask for a favorable on 675.
Questions from the committee for the bill sponsor, Delegate McComas.
Delegate Grammer, MABE doesn't like this bill, and I'm sure you're surprised about that. But they say they oppose all types of public financing for private schools and home instruction, including educational savings accounts. And I just kind of wanted to know, would you be willing to compromise, that some funds could be in other words, the taxpayer could put some of the funds to private schooling.
So MABE is the Association of the Boards of Education, right?
Correct.
The boards of education in the state of Maryland are a complete failure. You know, I represent Baltimore County. They're doing terribly. We rely on them. They have more authority in regard to our education system than any of us do. I mean, they really control where the funds go, how things operate, policies regarding curriculum, accountability, discipline, et cetera, et cetera. And it's just getting worse and worse. It's terrible. I get daily text messages about fights from my school system. Parents aren't notified when they should be. We have schools, we have whole jurisdictions that have 0% proficiency scores. It's a disgrace. So the fact that, hold on one second, the fact that MABE is popping off a little bit, I challenge it directly. And, when the students come to us and talk to us about Boost, we all get the students in our office about Boost. They love Boost. And it's a majority minority students who come and talk to us and they say, I was stuck. I had no future. I hated it. I hated going to school. But now I get to choose. We talk with my parents and choose where we go, and they love it. All the students love it. So I think the testimony from Abe is a complete joke, and I think we should listen to our students.
Well, where I was kind of going at is I know that the educational system does not, the public educational system is not your friend, okay, and is not the friend of charter schools or homeschooling or parochial schools, and that there's a real movement that no public funds should go to other types of education.
Look,
that is not public schools.
Yeah.
What I was just asking is, would you be willing to compromise half a loaf as opposed to a whole loaf?
Yeah.
As far as legislation, because you don't get the whole enchilada.
Two brief points. I want to point out the fact that I went to public schools. My entire family went to public schools. I had a great time at public schools. And what I really want from my jurisdiction is accountability. And I've been here for 10 years. It's getting worse and worse, and they're not doing it. Parents pay the taxes. Parents make the choices. I think we should do what many states around our country are doing, is giving them the authority to spend their dollars on their children how they want.
Are there any other questions from members of the committee for the bill sponsor?
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
We have testimony, unfavorable testimony from Kenzie Funk with Strong Schools, Maryland.
Thank you again, Chair Barnes, Vice Chair Chang, and members of the Appropriations Committee. My name is Kenzie Funk, and I'm here on behalf of Strong Schools Maryland as a policy associate in strong opposition of House Bill 675. Strong Schools Maryland is a network of education advocates dedicating to transforming Maryland's public education system through the blueprint for Maryland's future. Just moments ago, we spoke against House Bill 704, and I must emphasize that for the same reason, House Bill 675 warrants the same level of concern. Both bills share the same fundamental flaw of diverting public resources away from the public education system into education savings accounts for private school tuition. Let us remain steadfast in our commitment to transforming and bolstering our public education system instead of supporting legislation that diverts public dollars to support private education entities with proven negative impacts. So just to kind of clarify some of the statistics that were brought up in my previous testimony, what I was referencing is that a lot of the times we see conversations surrounding like 28 different studies of similar legislation that's passed in other states that's shown positive impacts for students. However, in a recent study from 2023 from Brookings Education Research, they found that a lot of those studies had inherent biases due to the small population pools and small programming that they actually researched. So instead, when we look at the macro level studies published in peer-reviewed journals, they show significant negative student impacts comparative to the negative student impacts we saw during the COVID-19 pandemic associated with this legislation. So to reiterate, the most recent data referenced in our previous testimony should serve as a cautionary tale of the negative impacts that follow this education savings account model legislation. We cannot afford to repeat these mistakes in Maryland. For these reasons, we respectfully urge an unfavorable report on House Bill 657. Sorry, thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Funk. Are there any questions from members of the committee for Ms. Funk? Okay, thank you very much. That concludes the bill hearing for House Bill 675. The committee will now move on to House Bill 1220, Delegate Vogel, Maryland Clean Energy Center Climate Technology Founders Fund.
Good afternoon, Mr. Vice Chair, Appropriations Committee, Delegate Joe Vogel here with House Bill 1220. House Bill 1220 makes I'm going to keep my testimony brief so that I can share my time with this really strong panel here. This bill makes a $7 million investment in climate technology startups, helping them grow here in the state of Maryland. And it requires no new appropriation because there's money already sitting there unused through the Maryland Strategic Energy Investment Fund. that's been sitting under MEA and Commerce that is supposed to go to climate tech or small minority women-owned, veteran-owned businesses in the climate space. But that money there have been no inquiries for that money over the last few years. So what this bill does is reallocate that funding to our friends here at the Maryland Clean Energy Center and the Maryland Energy Innovation Accelerator to make sure that money carries out the mission that it's intended to do, to help grow climate companies here in the state of Maryland, to help attract climate companies here in the state of Maryland. And I will note that we want to preserve the intent of the money as it was designated in the Clean Jobs Act of 2019, which is to invest in small minority women-owned, veteran-owned businesses here in the state. So we actually, there's language around, there's preferential language in the bill already, but we went ahead and drafted an amendment to set an actual threshold of 40% that we will circulate those amendments once they are ready. But my understanding is that our friends at the Maryland Energy Innovation Accelerator are already hitting those standards. With that, Mr. Vice Chair, I would like to turn it over to my panel.
Good afternoon, Mr. Vice Chair. I'm, for the record, Kathy Magruder, the Executive Director of the Maryland Clean Energy Center. For those of you that may not be familiar with us, we were created by the General Assembly in 2008 to fund and facilitate a clean energy future. As part of that work, we provide technical support to foster climate tech innovation and advance the adoption of clean energy and energy efficiency products, services, and technologies. We believe that climate tech is the next biotech for Maryland. As we look for economic competitiveness, we know that Maryland is well positioned to benefit from the science that is being done here and beyond to help society adapt and mitigate to climate change impacts. Discoveries that are happening here today are becoming new products, services, and technologies that will fuel the state's economic engine. As a result of the funding that you've invested in MCEC and our subsidiary, Maryland Energy Innovation Accelerator, or MEA, we have invested and created 37 new companies since 2019, 134 new high-paying jobs in the state of Maryland. And through our partnership with the University of Maryland and Hopkins and others across the state, including HBCUs and private sector, we've brought in over $214 million in non-dilutive grant funding and $70 million in private investment to help these companies stand up and operate in Maryland. We get calls from companies outside of state, startups that are looking for support saying, can I come work through your program? So I'm not going to talk too long today, except to say that we want to put these otherwise idle funds, which were appropriated to be used from the Strategic Energy Investment Fund, into the Commerce Department in the Video Lottery Terminal Fund, but to date have not been used. Put them work directly now and in the future to support small minority, women, and veteran-owned businesses so that we can help them advance into the marketplace with their new discoveries and new products. This money is also critical to help us match $2 million in federal grant that is available to us through the U.S. Department of Commerce. So I'm going to stop and let my colleagues take over.
I am Wade Harley. I'm the director of MEA, and we are the economic development arm of the Maryland Clean Energy Center. In July 1st, Director Paul Pinsky of the Maryland Energy Administration asked, what would MEA do with a 2x or 5x increased investment into our program? So we interviewed our clients, and what we came up with was to expand MEA into a prototype accelerator and into a manufacturing accelerator. Also to invest in MCEC, Maryland Clean Energy Center, into a founders fund where we would be able to match investments into MEA companies one-to-one, and also a fund to invest in incubator space and into facilities. In climate tech, we are a very expensive group. We build gadgets, so we need the wet labs, we need dry assembly, and we need fabrication. And so it's very expensive to lease property. And so we want to make investments as well. And then also increased investments into MEII, and I'll let MEII speak to that. So that's where we are talking about expanding the program. And so we've also reached out to the VLT organizations that administer this money today, talking to them about what we are planning to do. And to date, we've heard that they're intrigued by the idea, and several of them have come out in support. But we are trying to make sure that they understand what we're trying to do. But everybody's in agreement that we need to get this money out on the street and getting it invested into the target audience. And that's what we are trying to do. And with that, we have some MIA companies here today who are going to talk with you. Our companies are working on carbon sequestration, grid modernization, methane capture, and building materials to help bring the carbon issues with building all goals that we have here in the state of Maryland. So with that, I will turn it over to Paul.
Good afternoon. My name is Paul Albertus. I am the Associate Director of the Maryland Energy Innovation Institute, or MEII, also a Professor of Engineering at the University of Maryland, College Park. I'd like to just emphasize 2 points from my written testimony. One is the point that Kathy made, that the MEII and MIA programs have very strong economic returns since inception. I also want to talk more about the Sea Grant program in particular, which would be further expanded by this bill. The Sea Grant program is one that supports moving innovations from any Maryland university that has a graduate program and is research focused from the university stage into a commercial development stage, in particular things like prototype development and demonstration. That includes a number of minority serving institutions in Maryland, including Sea Grants that have been made to University of Maryland Eastern Shore, Morgan State University, and University of Maryland Baltimore County. This is a competitively run grant program open to, again, all research universities. So more specifically, in the first 6 years, we've had 57 Sea Grant proposals, and only 27 have been funded due to budget limitations. So the increased funding would allow us to support more of those. Also, on the minority serving institution front, there's been 9 proposals submitted and 5 have been funded. So again, there's opportunities for us to fund more of these projects with expanded funding. And so just to wrap up, I support a favorable with amendments report for this.
Oh, she was going to be on the next one.
Great. Okay, great. Are there any questions from members of the committee for this panel and the bill sponsor? Okay, great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We also have testimony from Kobe Osei-Kusi. And then also Amada Sultani Ahmadi. And Mark Woe. Go ahead and start.
Sure. Good afternoon.
Excuse me.
This is still at the seat of it.
That's okay. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Kobe Osei-Kusi. I am the founder of an EV charging startup based in Maryland, and I'm here to testify in support of this bill. So one thing that stops particularly climate startups is, and it's famously called the valley of death, is getting that first prototype that is going to attract customers and attract additional investors. So when you build those early prototypes and you're actually testing with customers, then you reach a stage that's called the seed stage, and you can get to Series A. And those investors come from across the country. You know, they're going to fly in from California to find you. But that early stage capital to get your prototypes up and running and customer validation, it's incredibly hard to get. So this bill is going to help Maryland-based startups cross that valley of death and get their products out in the market. And so just wanted to testify in full support of that. It's going to make Maryland stand out across the country and bring a lot of the ideas that aren't able to get to the prototype phase, that are dying, actually let them come to life. And there are a lot of jobs that are going to be created after that. So I strongly urge your support of this bill.
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Dr. Hamideh Sultani, Director of US Plasma. US Plasma is a startup company from University of Maryland, and the US Plasma's vision is to electrify manufacturing while minimizing waste, reducing greenhouse gas emission, and enabling new chemistry with reduced manufacturing costs. This company was formed 6 months ago with only one employee, myself. With MIA's support, US Plasma has managed to raise capital and got this company up and running and are about to hire 3 high-skilled employees soon. US Plasma would not have been able to make the above progress without the full commitment, dedication, and caring support of MIA. MIA not only provided us with initial legal and business support, but also held weekly meetings with us to guide us through the business challenges and our efforts to connect with potential industry partners, equity investors, and human resource procurement. I should also mention the high value I received from MIA's entrepreneurial periodic seminars covering important topics crucial to the success of the new startup. Here, on behalf of US Plasma, I would like to take this opportunity to thank the MIA's team for their unwavering help and support as I and the faculty founders are navigating through this journey. I would like to express our full support for this bill. Thank you.
Hello, members of the committee. My name is Mark Woe, Director of Manufacturing at JJ Innovative Materials. You have one of our samples over there, and thanks to the program at MIA, we've managed to actually build a product and hopefully on our way out of the valley of death. We are a R&D company developing plant-based, sustainable, carbon-negative construction materials in Baltimore, Maryland. We were able to develop this prototype, complete our pilot projects with the help of programs, guidance, and an energy executive in residence that MIA provided us with. With their help, we've developed proper corporate structure for communication systems, project management, and also explored various go-to-market strategies. As a result, we're ready to go toward manufacturing. We intend to be based in Baltimore the whole time and create several jobs along the way. We're working on setting up our first facility soon for this green drywall product, and we hope to have the opportunity to grow even more with the state of Maryland, with MIA, and we wholeheartedly support this bill and this program. Thank you.
Thank you very much to the witnesses. Are there any questions from members of the committee for this panel of witnesses? Okay, great. Thank you very much. So we have one virtual witness joining us, Tae-In Lee with JJ Innovative Materials Incorporated.
So that's my CEO. The reason I'm speaking is because I believe that since our docket got moved around, he is no longer able to speak.
Okay, great. So then you're providing testimony, Mr. Well?
Yes.
All right, great. Thank you very much. Okay, that concludes the bill hearing for House Bill 1220. Committee will now move on to House Bill 1211, Delegate Adams, Teachers Pension System, Reemployment of Retirees. Delegate Adams.
Thank you, Vice Chair and committee members. For the record, Delegate Chris Adams presenting House Bill 1211 titled Teachers Pension System, Reemployment of Retirees. The bill exempts a retiree of the teacher pension system who is reemployed and meets specified criteria from the mandatory offset to his or her retirement benefits. The bill applies to a retiree who is employed under a joint employer agreement between a local board of education and the Maryland Association of Boards of Education, and whose salary is fully funded by MABE. That is my testimony, asking for a favorable report, and I'll pass it to my panel for further discussion.
Good afternoon, Mr. Vice Chair, esteemed members of the committee. Milton Nagel, current Executive Director of the Maryland Association of Boards of Education. This bill applies to me specifically, so it's very personal. I spent a career working for Caroline County Public Schools, retired 2.5 years ago. MABE has been around since 1957, and from time to time has reemployed retirees to work at MABE and has grown over time. MABE now has about 25 employees. We do provide a variety of programs and services to school boards throughout Maryland. You all are most intimately familiar with what we do on the legislative front. And John Willems, one of the MABE's employees, is our legislative lobbyist. But we do a number of other things. We provide insurance products, property casualty insurance coverage for 19 of the 24 school districts, workers' comp coverage, and administration for 17 of the 24 school districts. We facilitated an OPEB, other post-employment benefit insurance trust fund, for 9 of the school districts in Maryland. And we now also administer a health insurance trust for 6 school districts and 1 county government. We partner well with MACO and other organizations here in the state. We're tremendously frugal, the state tax dollar. And historically, because of the small number of employees, we've utilized school districts to run the payroll, because payroll is one of those things you don't want to mess up. You want to get it right. You don't want to get on the bad side of the IRS, let alone the state comptroller's office. And over time, different school districts have been the payroll agent. Ironically, Caroline County happened to be the current payroll agent for MABE, which was the school district I retired from. And so therein lies the problem. You can't work for the same school district in which runs the payroll for MABE. Since then, we have separated that agreement with Caroline County Public Schools and moved on to an independent third-party company similar to ADP. It's a company called Paylocity. So this does sunset. It will never happen again to another MABE employee once hopefully you seek favorable on this House Bill 1211 and allow this fix to be to occur.
And Mr. Vice Chair, we have Ann Gothrop here is for information only. Myself and the Senate cross-file, Senator Mounts, have been working closely with her and working the bill and drafting some amendments that'll be applicable when you consider it.
Great. Thank you very much, Delegate Adams, for presenting the bill. And thank you very much, Mr. Nagel, for your service and for being here. Are there any questions for the bill's sponsor, the witness, or Ms. Gothrop for information? Okay, thank you very much. That concludes the bill hearing for House Bill 1211. The committee will now move on to the last bill this afternoon, House Bill 517, Delegate Bagnall, State Personnel Whistleblower Procedures and Remedies, First Amendment and Public Employees Protection Act. Delegate Bagnall, thank you very much for being here.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, esteemed members of the Appropriations Committee. For the record, I'm Delegate Heather Bagnall, District 33C, Anne Arundel County, here on behalf of House Bill 517, the First Amendment and Public Employee Protection Act. You have my written testimony, and you've heard this bill in previous sessions, so I will try to summarize. And I'm actually going to go off script and speak from the heart today, because you've seen this bill before. And I know that I stand between you and dinner. So this bill, the impetus for this bill was when an article dropped December 29th, 2021 in the Baltimore Sun regarding spoiled vaccines distributed across the state and the attempts of the former Deputy Director of the Maryland Department of Health Coronavirus Recovery Program to raise the alarms about the vaccines. And her formal complaint, after she was, according to the complaint, moved to an advisory role doing entry-level admin tasks and barred from communicating with her former colleagues. 2 of those sites were in my district. And the department was made aware of the spoiled vaccines in August, and they made the public aware in November. I have a large constituency of state employees in my district. I'm sure many of you do as well. And I put this bill in because I was tired of seeing my constituents, our hardworking, underpaid, underappreciated, and overworked state employees shackled and muzzled because they have to weigh their personal welfare against the public good. I had this bill in 2022. It was late in session because it took a lot of time to work it out. It was a pre-file in 2023. I wasn't going to put it in this year. And then I saw our health secretary splashed disingenuously across multiple front pages and pulled into hearings as she was held to account for actions that occurred before she was ever in that office. And the legislative audit revealed disparities and malfeasance that a reasonable person cannot believe that nobody saw occurring. Now, we do have whistleblower protections, but this bill would afford our state employees the highest level of protection. And it would strengthen our existing protections to help our state employees help protect our state. 3 years ago when I put this bill in, nobody came to the table except the Office of the Attorney General. And then last year when I put the bill in, the governor's office reached out to me about some concerns, some security concerns, and we worked together. And this year, when I put the bill in, the Department of Budget Management reached out to me, and we had a really, really great conversation about the actions that they were taking. And they were surprised to discover that a lot of our state employees don't even know what the existing whistleblower protections are. So I don't know if we're ready to pass this bill, because the Office of the Attorney General has now raised some concerns about whether we are housing it under the correct authority. But I think we can get this done, and I think we should figure out how to do it, because our state employees deserve protection, and they are watching us and they are listening to us. And I want to make sure that we are responding accordingly. And with that, I ask for a favorable report on House Bill 517.
Great. Thank you very much, Delegate Bagnall. Are there any questions for the bill sponsor on this bill? Okay. Thank you very much for presenting it. That concludes the bill hearing for House Bill 517. And that also concludes the hearings for today on behalf of Appropriations Committee Chairman Ben Barnes. Thank you so much, everyone. Have a great evening.